My name is Charles Harrell with Veterans History Project. Today is September 17th, 2005. I'm here with Mr. Kelly at Glen Burnie, Maryland, interviewing him about his World War II experiences. For the record, Mr. Kelly, would you state your full name?
Stuart F. Kelly,
And what is your current address?
1725 Marley Avenue, Glen Burnie, State of Maryland.
Where were you born, Mr. Kelly?
Baltimore,
And when?
May 11th, 1924.
What branch of service were you in?
U.S. Army.
What company did you serve with?
Service Company, 180th Infantry, 45th Division.
What was your highest rank when you got out?
T5, Corporal.
And can you remember when you were drafted?
The date, no. I'd have to look it up.
Probably around 1942.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And you were discharged in 1945?
Yeah, it was close to 3 years I was in.
What war did you serve in?
World War II.
And could you confirm that you were in the ETO theater?
Yeah.
North Africa, Italy,
Uh,
France, and Germany?
right.
Where did you join up with the 45th Division?
Oh, that was, I think, at Venafro, Italy. That's right, north of Naples.
Were you ever a prisoner of war?
No.
And were you ever injured while in service?
Yeah, a shrapnel wound, my left hip.
I see that you mentioned you had 5 battle stars.
Yeah, 5 campaigns.
Did you ever come under direct enemy fire from rifles? Or was it just shelling?
Snipers, we occasionally, they would sing in, and artillery, and bombing, and strafing.
But in service company, you were behind the lines most
We
of the
were
time.
always back from the actual rifle companies. We transported the kitchens and the ammunition and supplies and the wounded and stuff from a service company in direct support.
I'd like to jump back now and talk about your early life growing up. You said you were born in 1924. Do you recall anything before the Great Depression started in your family? Or can you not remember?
Well, the Depression was sort of waning down as I remembered as a child, but I remember Dad had trouble getting work. He was a carpenter.
What was his name?
Milton Franklin, and he was born in Solomons, and so he was a waterman, and my 2 uncles, his brothers, followed the water, and my grandfather, he was also a waterman. He lived at Solomons, and I didn't know him. He was drowned before I got to know him. And
He was drowned?
Yeah, he had a 4-masted schooner, and he hauled freight, produce, and stuff up and down at Chesapeake and up and down the ocean coast. That's what they used didn't have steam back then. They sailed. And it was off of Hatteras, so I remember that it was a wreck. And if I remember right, it was R.B. Haney was the name of the ship, I think. And I'm just kind of dragging that out of things I heard as a kid. And then he was on a tug towing 3 barges, and he went back to cut one loose to save the other 2 and was washed overboard, and never got his body. But he was from. And then the Depression, I remember it was very little money.
Was your dad ever out of work for a lengthy amount of time?
Well, some off and on. He was a carpenter. There wasn't much building going on then. So then he did side jobs and sharpened ice skates for money. Anything, he could. And he built furniture out of wood from the job, chairs and stuff, lawn chairs and stuff, and painted them. And we never had a car. and he rode with somebody else when they had work, and he knew a guy had a summer home, Becker his name was, and he did a lot of home work for him, and then he got a job with Consolidated Engineering, and work started to be steady as it got better and better, where we got a telephone after a while.
Were you living in Baltimore
Yep,
this time?
in row house on 37th Street, my sister and myself. And so I remember that part of it, that I wanted a bicycle, and I saved up $16, and that's about what they cost. But I got a new bicycle one time for Christmas.
How about your mom? Where was she?
She was a homemaker. She didn't work outside, but she kept things going at home, you know, and cooking and taking care of the kids. And we survived, you know. We weren't rich, but we survived. We had a row of houses. Didn't take much to heat them. They're all bunched together, you know. And,
What was your mother's name?
Maxine Beulah. And I remember she wouldn't let Dad touch the furnace. We had coal furnace, and she took care of the furnace, had it so it wouldn't go out, and he'd get down there and want to bend something, and he'd stick something in that hot fire to get it hot to bend it, and she'd go down and get on him. You get out of my furnace, you'll wreck it for the night. I remember they used to, you know, I'd fight about it, but he would sneak that door open, because he had a workshop in the basement. And he was a craftsman, he was, and he would get these chunks of wood. I remember sitting there with a draw knife, cutting out wooden ducks, decoys, and painting them. And he'd have a whole row of them. He might have 20 lined up. And it would be the body, and the next night would be the body and the head. And then he would put the blue on, and put the white on, and he put his initials in the bottom, and a hook for the anchor. And he sold them to make money, you know, and the duck hunters bought them. They look real. They're all a chunk of wood then, but he'd sit there with that draw knife and carve those things out. And then he was an ice skater, and so was I. Got me interested, and he would sharpen ice skates, and he showed me how to do it. And at the rink, they would do it freehand. It would be all wobbly on the bottom, and he made it where it's precision to hollow ground with you set that ice skate right in the center of that wheel, so it was hollow ground this way. And he showed me how to do it, and they had a little sign after when the ice skate sharpened 25 cents. Quarter was a lot of money, you know.
Could you do it by the time the war began?
As I got older, after the war, after I come home, then I was, you know, older. But it's funny, I was the youngest guy in my company, because I was 18 when I went in, and that was a National Guard outfit. Everybody was older than me. I was the kid. But and I took a beating for that, being the youngest kid in the unit. But
can you tell me about your schooling in the 30s?
Yeah, I did pretty good in grade school. Then I got up to the 6th, and we went into junior high. So then the option come up from junior high to high school, and I had an option to go to vocational high or regular high. And I was born with this mechanical talent, and it was always something I was tearing apart or fixing or doing with my hand. It was just a challenge all the time. And I wanted to be a mechanic. I wanted to drive. I wanted to know about electricity. So I talked my parents in if I could go to vocational high. So I did, and I loved it. And I went to I did good on my marks, because I was interested in the shop work and electrical work. So I did 2 years there, and the last year I would be just having regular studies, but doing mostly shop work, because they had a shop where they actually worked on the cars and trucks, and that's what I wanted to do. And when it got up to that point, that summer, I was on vacation. My scoutmaster, he was knew his friend Parchman Hall had an electrical repair shop, and I said I'd love to work in there for a summer vacation. So he saw Mr. Hall, and he got me a job in there. And I was making $15 a week, I think. And so when it come time to go back to school, the war was on, and I should have went back to school. I had a year to go to graduate, and I told Dad, I said, look, I'm doing the same thing now that I would be doing in school. I remember arguing that, and I'll be getting paid for it. You know, and then I dropped out of school, stayed there, and then I left there and went in a defense job at the shipyard because I was doing motorcycle work on the side, and he was a foreman down at the shipyard, and he says, and I worked for him at night doing odd work on motorcycles. He says, well, I'll get you a job down at the shipyard. It's okay. So I went down, he got me a job. I went in as a mechanic's helper. Well, I knew electricity from school, so my job was to climb up on cranes and check the voltage on the regulators and check the batteries. Yeah. And then that was one of my jobs, spiral staircase going up 110 feet.
And the war had already started.
The war was on. They were building Liberty ships in.
So you got to 11th grade?
Yeah. And
or you quit?
Well, I didn't graduate. I had another year to go.
Was there? You mentioned that you had a scout, Matt.
Yeah.
Scout leader. Were you a scout?
Yeah, I was a scout.
How far did you get in that?
Not very far. I don't know. It's just a place to meet guys, and I did go, and I enjoyed it. We went on camp trips and stuff, but I never really went far with it. You know.
Did you travel much as a young man before the war?
Yeah, we took one trip. We went to Detroit in an old station wagon, and Johnny Kidd and myself in one of the first station wagons. And the rumor was police department was selling motorcycles up there for pretty near nothing. It wasn't the case, but the guy I worked for, James DeSena, had the motorcycle shop. I said, we go out there, Jim, and they are cheap like that, and we can put two of them in it. He says, wire me, I'll send you the money. We got out there, and it wasn't the case. They were the same price. But we made the trip, and we slept in the station wagon, cooked in the station wagon. We had a little stove and stuff. But that was probably the longest trip we took.
You mentioned you and who went out there?
Johnny Kidd.
Who was he?
He was a guy, we went to school together, and we knocked around together as kids. He went in the 82nd Airborne. He's still living. Matter of fact, I got to call him. He lives up in Pennsylvania. And so when we were motorcycle guys, you know, and we had a motorcycle club called the Coffin Chasers. It had a skull on the back and crossbones, and which they elected me the president of. But it was a gang we rode with, and we had fun. It was we'd go out as a group and ride and stuff, and that was our hobby and pastime, and dating girls. And then you didn't need a helmet, and you could pick up dates like nothing with a motorcycle. It was a fun thing, you know.
So you weren't into sports much?
No, I just I played younger a lot of hockey on the street with skates, and I did a lot of skating, a lot of bicycle riding and racing. One race, we were all as kids there, and the professionals were going around Lake Montebello. It was a mile around there, and they had the stand set up, and we had to ride up. So we were watching them. So they got on the PA system, said we're going to have a volunteer of a race. Everybody's welcome. So this buddy of mine had a better bike than I did. It was aluminum. Let me take your bike and get, cause I could ride pretty good. So I got on that, and we all started off. Must have been 20 or 30 of us to go around. And I said, "This is pretty easy. I'm, in control here." I wasn't leading. I just laid back till at the end, and I still remember this. At the end, I said, "Well, I think I can take this thing," and I let out what I had left, and I made first place, And I thought, "Boy, this is great." There's 3 places. They brought us up on the platform there where they had the judges and stuff, and they awarded me National Wheel Association. They were adult bicycle guys, and we were just kids. Boy, this is nice. It was a medal. I still have it. It's got a little. And the second prize, the guy got a kickstand, and the third prize, he got a little electric horn on his bike. And I thought, son of a gun, I should have come in second. The kickstand meant more to me than a medal, I often thought about that. But the feeling and the glory of winning, the only race I was in, I remembered it. It was a thrill. So.
As the war began in Europe in 1939 and Hitler, were you aware about Hitler?
Not quite tuned in as I could have been. I knew there was a war. I heard Dad talking about the German Bund, and I didn't really think much about it. It didn't impress me till I started getting older and getting close to the draft and stuff that I would take time to read about it. It didn't impress me like you think it would, I guess. I don't remember it, but then of course, now I got to be 16 driving a motorcycle. They had the Maryland Minutemen organization at the 5th Regiment Army, and everybody on the motorcycle got a card to come down. And we went down. I was too young to join. I had to be 18, but you got a tag, Maryland Minuteman, and you could be called to emergency duty for sabotage and stuff. And it was a gang of motorcycles, and we lit out of there. And then we got a call that there was saboteurs at a dam, a Pretty Boy Dam. Somebody in the woods had a flashlight, and everybody was on, So we rode up there, and what we could do, we had no gun or anything. A whole bunch of motorcycles searching for the sabotage. They were going to blow the dam up. Rumors, what it didn't amount to anything other than the ride. But and I think that everybody was gung ho then. And then when I was working in Parks and Hall, a truck came in. I was working on it, and when I got the hood up and looked down underneath there was a SWAT sticker painted on that firewall underneath where you couldn't see unless you opened it and looked for it. I saw it while I was working, and I saw that SWAT sticker. I knew what it was. I went and told my boss, and he called somebody, and they come over and looked at it. Now, what happened after that, I have no idea.
That was when the war was already started?
Yeah.
Do you recall the day that we were attacked at Pearl Harbor? You're at Anzio, and you're about ready to go into the attack.
I'm trying to get my... No, we didn't have a battleship behind us, and that was... let's see. So we got in, and watching them soften up the coast with the airplanes, they did that. They were dive bombing, and so then there wasn't much opposition, hardly anything. We walked, so we didn't have vehicles, and we were marching in, and we walked all that day, and right before, and we didn't, it wasn't, but occasional, until they get the artillery set up, occasional, it was kind of quiet. It was kind of strange, really. We got in that far. So at the end of the day, we stopped and dug in. We didn't dig in. There was no fire, and we didn't dig in. So we were on top of the ground, and usually it was 2 GIs together, share a blanket, and put one down, cover with one, and shelter half. Then he put a pup tent up. I remember we were exhausted walking all day. And then George says, quit fooling around. I said, I'm not fooling around. Quit bothering me. What we didn't know, when we laid down in that field, there was these chameleons, these little lizards. It was like ants in there. They run all over us. You know, we knew what it was at night. It was dark. What the heck is that? And you couldn't hit them. They were fast. Next morning we found out what they were. Then we picked up and went in again. And that's kind of vague there where we finally got caught up to our vehicles. And because the first part of that operation wasn't a whole lot to it. We went in and then stopped, and then they dug in and set the artillery up, and then they sent the crowds down to greet us, and it was kind of pretty hot spot. I don't see how they survived the artillery barrages that we laid on them. It was unreal, you know, and I never saw how many crowds they killed, but how they bombed them and we shelled them. That place rumbled all the time. And we got dug in that place, and that was nightly. It would be real quiet. You hear pow, pow, pow in the distance. Then you hear somebody would copy it, 3 shots. And that was their radar signal that the planes were coming. And you hear Bedjet Charlie come, the bombers, and then they'd unload on us. And you just wait, you know, where he was going to drop it. And they hit us one night, and we were all dug in then. And I thought, oh no, this is unreal. I thought, if they drop paratroopers on us now, we're, you know, and I opened, we had logs and stuff, and I looked out, you know, and it was, ammunition dump was blowing up, the gasoline was burning, stuff flying around there, and so the next morning, we looked at the damage. They'd wiped our ammunition supply out, and Ryder's truck had a shell. It'd gone through the side halfway. It was stuck in the middle. It's like touching that thing. But they got it out, and and then that was when they hit us pretty hard. And then they had these anti-personnel bombs. There's pictures of them in there. They were about 6 feet high, and were shell. And they would come down and open, and inside there were rings of anti-personnel bombs, like by the size of hand grenades. And they sound like Chinese firecrackers, all over the place. And they dropped one. It was right close to my foxhole, really. It sounded like I all but missed it, really. Well, what happened, I had built a shower. We didn't have any place to clean up, so I took a 55-gallon drum, got a pipe come out of it, went to the bottom, take an oil can, put it full of holes, and had a valve on it. And I'd take a kitchen stove and put under it and heat the water. And after it got warm, well, you could turn that valve on and get soap down, turn it on, and hose off. So they came over, the old man come over. You made that? Yes, sir. Well, he says, we draw stuff from the supply and put a canvas around it, and it was all mud where it had a stand. There's no drainage or anything. Well, it seemed like that bomb they dropped that night was what I wanted, because you didn't have anything to work with. Those 2 halves made a half-round place, and I put wood over top of them, and that caught the water. So that was my shower drain, the bomb casings they dropped. And I thought that was pretty nice of them crowds to do that. So that worked out. From that Anzio deal with the showers, then he asked me to build a bigger one. So I scrounged up some pipe and made a larger one where you could get 500 or 600, just an A-frame like the kids would swing on, no big deal. And so that worked out. And from there, they decided to make a regimental thing. That wasn't an issue. They never thought of that stuff, I guess, when they first, formed the Army, a place to clean the guys up. So I thought, I don't want any parts of that thing. So I wanted to stay with what I was at. So they took one of the guys from the tire exchange, and I helped them with it, and they went back and they got issue shrapnel tents, and they put pipes together and pumps, and they had a regimental shower, and we used it. You go in and throw all your issue away, and you can shower and come out, and they give you all new issue socks and shirts and size, and that's your whole brand new and all clean and stuff, and it worked out. But it originated from the first one I made, but then after that they handled all that bit.
When you worked at the shop where you were fixing a truck, was it out in the open?
Yeah, in the field.
So it wasn't like in a garage
If
anywhere?
if we were traveling and we would come into a town that had some facilities in it, we'd clean it out and use it if we, depending, but most times in the field. And we did it right out in the open, really. So
Did you work only on trucks?
anything that needed to be fixed.
Tanks too?
No, not tanks. Just we had a fleet of GMCs and Jeeps and some captured stuff we had, motorcycle and stuff. But they hauled the ammunition to the line companies, and the kitchens. They hauled the kitchens up there, and we transported the kitchens from the service company, and it was just a company that supplied the regiment with ammunition, food, and fuel.
Now, did you drive the trucks too?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I always had a captured truck I drove, and when we convoy, they wouldn't let me go with the convoy because it was a captured truck, and it was hairy. You could get straight. If one of our planes see it, they'd bust it, But we'd put big stars on it and hope for the best. I never got strafed, but they keep us kind of out of it.
Did you name your truck that you drove?
No.
Did you give it a name?
I never had one that long to name it. I always capturing stuff and using that in my truck. And but some of them, in the early part, the 45th, they had, it was before, they had the bumpers painted white, and they would have Night Raider and the Baron and different names, and they made them take it off. We got in combat for identification. They'd paint them OD and they put the regular outfit number on them.
In the service company, did you have numerous teams that set up garages all over the place, or
No,
was it just
no.
one?
No, it was just one. It was we were service for the 108th Regiment, and we did all of that, We had a tow truck, recovered the damaged ones that were hit or run over a mine or something. They go, bring them back, and what was left of them, and sometimes we could fix them, depending on how bad it was, And but it was interesting, and it kept you busy. We had a lot of brake work, and it was sometimes you run without brakes. You didn't have them really; they were ground out from it. You run in soup, mud and stuff. It was hard on the vehicles, and getting them stuck and towing them out. And if I was hauling, they put small arms ammunition on a truck I was driving. It was heavy, and it was hard to load. I mean, they'd use us to load them too and unload them. The crew. We always had something to do, and I got stuck one time, and I knew what not to do. I run my cable out. It was easy. Run out to a tree and just loop it single strand. You break that shear pin, then you had to get yourself in that mud to get that thing out. You had to go in where the truck was stuck, and I had Anzio, and I could put a snatch block out there and go out and then come back. It can be a 2-to-1 pull. They get those things going, or a tank would give you a pull. But I never sheared a pin. I do the same thing with my boat here, but knowing you can get a lot more pulling power, multiplying it double, And we had the stuff there to do it with, and some of the places we had to go wasn't the greatest, really,
How bad was it at Anzio, and how long did it last?
It lasted pretty long, and it was pretty bad.
A month? 2 months?
No, it lasted all. I guess, all that winter, all that summer, all that winter, and it was the spring of the next year where we broke out. and I got an infected finger up there and went back to the hospital in Naples and then came back. And we could hear them in Rome. You could lay there and hear that gunfire in Rome, Anzio, and woof, and then you'd wait and you'd hear and Shelby going over. And then sometimes it'd be an aerial burst, and it went still further, it went to the harbor then. And when it hit, it made one hell of a racket, but they would go over all night long, and before dark, because they couldn't spot them. But you would hear it in Rome. You could lay there. There's 15 miles. You hear that railroad gun go. And Anzio, there's a railroad gun, is now in Aberdeen, and I saw it. It's up there on display at the museum. But and then we all lived underground. And one night at Anzio, it was a quiet night. No burp guns, no artillery. Everything, we weren't firing, they weren't firing. I was sitting there on a bale of hay on guard, a rifle across my lap, a helmet on, a collar up around me. It was cold. Something hit me in the side, knocked me over. I landed sprawled, my gun's laying there on the ground, my helmet's off, and there's a dog licking my face, you know. I thought I was dead, you know. I got myself together and sit back down on the hay, got my rifle back up across my lap, and he's sitting alongside of me shivering. And he wanted to be friends. It's a dog, and there was no civilians on the beach yet. They evacuated them all off, but this dog was there. So I reached in my pocket and I got some sea ration crackers, one or two of those left. So I gave him one, and I ate one. And then my relief came. So the dog followed me home. And my bunker, we had dug a hole in the entrance this way. They could go in, and had logs across the top for the aerial burst, because stuff was flying all over the place. So it's dog. I crawled in, dog, and I went to sleep. Next morning, I got up. He followed me to chow, and I fed him, and that went on for about a week or so. So one evening, I'm over at my foxhole, and Sergeant Rowe, Kelly says, I got something I want to tell you. I said, what's that? He said, get rid of that dog. I said, oh, Rowe. I said, he said, I'm telling you, that dog comes in my foxhole once more, I'm going to put a bullet through that dog. You get that dog out of here or tie it. I said, boy, you're awful hard on my dog. That's an order, boy. And he walked away. Well, no, he didn't walk away. He started to walk away. Well, they start shelling. And he and I dove into my foxhole, knew where the dog was. And after it was all over, he's leaving. He said, I'm telling you, that dog got to go. He said, I don't want that dog in my foxhole. It's hard enough to keep it clean anyway. So he walked. So, crap, I gotta get rid of my dog now. So here he comes back. I thought, well, what now? What do I do now? Come here, I want to show you something. So I went back over to his foxhole. Well, a shell had come down through his bunker between the logs, and where he'd have been laying, it would have gone through his stomach. And we dug it out. It was down in the sand. It was still warm under his bunk. And he hadn't been over there complaining about my dog, he'd have been dead with his guts spread open, you know. And I said to Sergeant Robert Rowe, I says, think maybe I can keep my dog now? I said, he saved your life. Yes, he did that. He said, he did that. He says, yeah, he says, I changed my, he was all shook up. He said, I changed my mind. And I caught him feeding the dog and petting him. And I thought, well, he made a friend. But that dog saved his life, and probably mine too. Well, I got an infected finger and I went back to Naples. When I came back, I said to Ollie, where's my dog? I said, hate to tell you this, but I took care of him while you were away. And he jumped out of a Jeep and a tank run over him. It's pretty quick then, wasn't it? So that was the end of the dog. But that, I often wondered, I'm sure he remembered that incident. Hadn't he been there to complain about that dog, he'd have been dead for sure.
How did you get an infected finger?
Working on trucks and it cut it or something and it got infected. And dirt and stuff in places to wash up right and stuff, you know.
There at Anzio, did you see a lot of dead GIs?
Well, not really. I saw them when they were hauling them, but they were covered, you know, and he knew what it was, the trucks they used. And
did you see any dead Germans?
yeah. And yeah, I saw some of them that were left over where he gathered them up. But after that, after we got kind of established, no. And one incident that we had a attack, and I was in the hospital with, what was I in there for? A hand or something. Anyway, there was a guy next to me I got talking to. He had a wound or something, and the Red Cross come through and asked for volunteers to donate blood for these German prisoners who were in another camp, another tent. And he went off. He went berserk, man. I mean, they had to calm him down. So after he calmed down, I got talking to him. You know, he had one of the rifle companies. I said, "Now you're a little bit more composed." I said, "You got a real hate for them crowds." He says, "I'll tell you," he says, my mother and father and my sister, my whole family was taken by the Gestapo, and I got away. And he got to Austria, and somehow through the underground they got him back to the States. He was just a kid. He said, "I saw what they did. Now I can speak German fluently." And I volunteered as soon as I was 17 to get back in the service.
So they were cutting.
So they cut the bread up in little cubes like cake, and I was an interpreter. Each day I'd learn a new word from one of the guys in the company, and I could partly carry on a demented, so to speak, conversation as an interpreter. So it was all up to me, and they said, "What are we eating, Kel?" I said, "I don't know. I wish my head would quit spinning." I said, that was schnapps in there. I know that wasn't no ginger ale, you know. So they brought it out and laid it on the table, and I asked them, "Was ist los?" You know, and what is this? Well, they told me in German, and I didn't know what the word was. So I thought, well, maybe they describe it. And I said, the funny part, I said, in German, I said, "haben the größte Schwanz or the kleine Schwanz." And what I was referring to was the tail. It could have been a fox with a long tail or a rabbit with a short tail. I didn't know what we were eating, you know, it was some kind of an animal. Well, what I asked and said in their language, did it have a short thing or a long thing? Privates. Well, they knew I didn't know what I was saying, and they got to laughing. Their tears were rolling out of their eyes, and everybody said, the GI said to me, "What the hell did you say, Kel?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "But I think I'm in a big trouble." I said something wrong. Well, after they were rolling, they were holding their stomach there. The old man, he put his arm around me and he patted me. He said, "Schwanz." I said, "Oh no." Then I knew what I had done. Well, how do you entertain foreigners that you can't talk to for a whole night of fun? And you know what they did? They got at the cards, the playing cards, the old maids. We played old maids. Every time you went up with the old maid, you got a schmutzy from a burnt cork on your forehead, you know? And you don't have to be able to speak another language. You can play cards and not know the language, and you wind up trading off until you're stuck with the old maid and you get a schmutzy. You lose, and everybody laughs and shuffle the cards and go again. And it was entertaining, and they enjoyed it, and laugh when I made that blunder about that meal. That was a classic joke, really. And after I knew what I said, I was embarrassed, but they were laughing, so I wasn't too well out of line, but it was funny, and I would tell that story, and that it really happened. I still laugh about it, and I could just picture them seeing this dumb GI trying to speak their language and goofing up like that, and what I said was hilarious, really, because they enjoyed it. But
And this happened after the war was over.
well, no, this was during the war.
During the war.
We weren't supposed to fraternize during the war, and we weren't supposed to have anything to do with them. You didn't know who you were dealing with, really, you know, because they could have turned on you. But they were country people, and they could walk in those wood shoes like, well, it was always mud and stuff, and those houses were clean. They had slippers on, but that went into the wooden shoe, and they went in the house, they could just walk right out of them. Of course, we had to take our combat boots and stuff off, and tread that mud into the house, and took time to get them off and balance yourself, and so you wouldn't mess their place up. But
You said that you stayed in Germany for a while after the war was over. Huh?
yeah.
When did you come home? Was it in the winter? The war ends in May in Europe.
And then in May, then we went into Army of Occupation. It must have been the fall, because I went into Army Occupation after the war in Europe ended. And I went in the 9th Armored. That was going to be the occupation division. Of course, I wasn't with them, only in the, and then they just changed our name. A lot of the people remained the same that had points like I did. And then I was given a job as hauling gasoline. And then he called me in there, this new captain, and I was corporal, and he says, whoever does the best job will get the rating. I said, I already got the rating, and which, I don't know what that even meant, maybe. But I had trouble understanding him, that he was French, American French. But I was planning on staying there that winter, because I was going to get a pair of ice skates. I had no, we were in Daukau. I had a girlfriend in Munich, and I could skate in there on a canal. They had water canals that they transported water open, like reservoirs in there. They were level, and they'd freeze over, and they told me they would skate on them. They were allowed to skate on them. I said, well, I could skate in to see her. Well, I didn't have a Jeep, because then they were more military when the war ended. You had trip passes and all that stuff to comply with. And then I took my truck and cut the floorboard out. I was going to run the exhaust pipe up through the cab and back and down out, and have that hot exhaust pipe in there to keep warm. Because I was planning on being there that winter, but then, it was the beginning of the winter I came home of that year.
Where you left Europe?
Yeah, because I was planning on, I thought I was going to have to be there all winter, and I didn't. I didn't get into that cold weather, so the dates and stuff are not clear.
Where did you come home to? Baltimore?
No, we come back. We got on a troop carrier, 2-stacker, and we started across, and it got into a storm, and it was bad. I thought the ship was going to roll over. She'd go down on the one side, and she'd wash that deck. You could see water in them portholes. And when she rolled back, it was slow roll. They'd open the hatches, and you could run down the high side and go in the front side of the ship where the galley was to get something to eat. And they'd let 12 go at a time, make sure 12 received at the time, because she rolled the other way. Anybody out there would be gone. But it was a slow roll. You had time to run out there. Just don't fool around, So you got back in. And that's how they handled that coming back. Well, then he turned it south to get out of that storm and got down into the Gulf Stream, then came across, come up the coast, and we come in Newport News. Well, everybody was topside when we started coming in there. They wanted to see America. And that ship was listing pretty bad. The whole crew was out of the hole up on the top. And it was listing bad. He come on the PA system. He says, I cannot dock this ship in this condition. If you guys don't level it up, I'm going to have to send general quarters and you have to go back in the hold. And nobody wanted to move. I was one of the first to move because I don't want to go in that hole. If everybody else does, we'll at least be on top side when we, hit America. Well, I went right away. I usually did what I was told. I got over and they started coming over, and then finally we got the ship leveled up and they put her on the dock. That was Newport News. And that's where we got mustered out. And from there we went to Fort Meade by train, and when we got discharged.
Did you write to the girl back in
No.
Europe?
Never bothered with her. There's enough American girls for me here that had to deal with. No, it just...
Did you go back to Baltimore?
Mhm.
To Mama?
Yeah, went home, and then in that interim of getting adjusted, I got that 52-20 club where you could give you $20 a week for 52 weeks, and I started in that and got goofing around, and we bought a boat and we'd go out fishing, take a vacation, and crabbing and knocked around, and and then I thought I'm going to work. So I went to work at the Federal Truck Company. I was there 11 years. Then I bought a tractor and trailer, and I thought I'd go in business for myself. And Johnny, guy I grew up with, one is in the paratroopers, he was going to be the principal driver. That's okay, but then he got married and didn't want to leave town. The truck company, it got in pretty bad shape, and but I remember coming back from St. Louis, and we were driving along too long. I'll never forget, I looked down the road, and I still remember this big flashing light down the road, orange light. I can still see it. It was orange, and it flashed just like the safety pylons they had in Pennsylvania at the car stops. They had them built up with a light where you would board streetcars. I saw this light flash. Well, I guess somebody got a problem down the line. No traffic in. It was right after the war. I slowed down. I got up to the light, and I couldn't go around. It was right in the middle of the road, so I turned off. I'm going slow. I was in low gear by then. And then when the truck hit the shoulder in the ditch, I woke up, and I slammed the brakes on. I wasn't going that fast. And the truck is headed for the woods. Johnny woke up. I woke up. I opened the door. I remember, and looked back to see if that light was there. That's how real it was, And I swear to this day that it wasn't my time to go. It was my pulse flashing. I can see it now, that I was guided to stop that truck. And that was just unreal when you think about it. I just didn't keel over.
You drove truck after the war. Huh? Did you join a veterans organization also?
Yeah, I belonged to American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars.
How long after the war did you join?
Oh, it's a long time. I didn't join right away.
Did you think about the war much after?
Yeah.
Immediately after?
I wanted to forget about it, and I didn't want to be reminded of it. And this
During the war, did you carry anything for good luck?
No. No, just, no. I just had good luck.
Just had good luck.
Had good luck.
Um, the war ended in Japan with the dropping of the atomic weapons. By that time, the war was over in Europe, and
Yeah.
you were driving truck in Europe still. President Truman made the conscious decision to use a brand new weapon that was terrifying. Today, you look back at it, do you think Truman made the right choice?
War, war is just, how do you put it? It should never be. And the life loss and people killing one another shouldn't be. God never intended that. The atomic blast come up, we were going to have to go into Japan. I dealt with the SS that they would not give up, and the Japs were even more determined not to give up. They were so radical, they'd rather die than give up. And if we would have had to go invade their homeland, we'd have had to kill all them. I don't know if we'd had enough people to do it. It would have been an impossible, I think, situation where we were planning to do. The way I looked at it, and seeing what I had seen, what the crowds had done in Daukau, and places where they had been inhuman when it come to the atomic bomb. Yeah, it shouldn't have been, in one sense, dropped, but then it was one against the other. If it hadn't have been, if then okay, had not dropped that bomb, and the other one and we had it gone in there, it saved lives. Yeah, it took lives out, but in the long run, it saved both sides many, many thousands of people by the sacrifice and of that one bomb. I mean, that stopped the war almost immediately. Now, if he'd have given up before that, so many lives could have been saved, but that wasn't going to be the case. They were too determined, and with their honor system and all this kamikaze stuff, that I'd hate to have to fight that element, really. Because that you have to kill them. You can't reason with them.
Here we are 60 years after the end of the war, and you said that you hated the Nazi military. What's your feelings toward the German people?
That's different now. I don't have that against them. I mean, that's another regime, and those people, I'm sure, feel the same way towards us. At the time, yeah, it was a kill or be killed type thing that you had to do, you were trained to do, and it was your duty to do. And the government said, this is what you're supposed to do, you mind, and you did. You were trained to be a soldier, to do what you were told. They were the same way. And now there's some arrogant ones that are still probably dangerous, but we have criminals like that here that are American.
Did you ever talk to any German civilians about the concentration camps?
No, but I talked to one girl. We were talking. She could speak pretty good English, and she says, "We're pure Germans, and you are nothing but like spaghetti as vegetable soup. You're African, and you're Indian, and you're all nationalities all mixed up. You're nothing but trash, and we're pure." Well, that was her attitude of being a Nazi, a pure Nazi, you know, and some of them were arrogant. Maybe they still feel that way. I don't know, because I am in contact with them. I went back over to Germany, and they were all friendly people. And one arrogant colonel that I almost shot, we were coming through southern France, and we couldn't keep the gasoline up to the tanks. They were using it so fast when Patton was on those drives. And we came by this regiment had surrendered, and when they would surrender, they would get rid of their weapons. They'd keep their kitchen in our hospital, and so they're still organized, you know, so they can take care of their troops. And their motor pool, whatever they needed. And the major said, I want that tank. They had a tank truck, and no use for a tank truck, and bring it up to the company. And so the captain, he said, we got to go back and get that tank truck we passed. I said, all right. So we got in the Jeep and went back, and this colonel come out, and we were getting ready to take his truck. He says, he could speak good English. He says, you can't take that truck. Our government, this, he was an arrogant son of a gun. And he says, that belongs to the German army, and you will not have it. We will rule, or something. I took my 45 out. He didn't see it. And I shot alongside his foot. They're pretty loud, 45, when you're that close. He jumped. And I said, yeah. I was coming back from Frederick with Johnny Kidd in that station wagon, and that was when the war was declared, when Pearl Harbor was bombed. It was shortly after that we declared war on Japan. And that,
How did you hear the news?
it was on a little Philco radio. It cost $19.95 at Pep Boys. I'd put a number of them in for cars. They never had radios, but they were selling them. I'd put the antenna on, being a mechanic, the antenna and the radio on, and bolted up there. They were little Philcos about that big. And we had that on, and coming back from Frederick was one, that must have been, that was Japan, I think, yeah. Now the one in Europe, I don't have any recollection. It doesn't stand out, when that happened.
What did you talk to your friend about when you heard the news?
We were just like those SB, we got to get them. And then I don't remember just the attitude and all from there, but it was, it was, I guess, upsetting to a point, but with kids it's not as serious as it is with adults, and the seriousness of really what was happening,
Well, here you are. You're not 18 yet. You're in the
Yeah,
16, 17
16,
range. Did you know anybody who immediately after they heard about Pearl Harbor and the attack go out and volunteer?
Yeah, I had a friend, the friend of the family, one related, in Freeburger. His father was a photographer, I think. Anyway, but he went to Canada and joined the Canadian Air Force, and then from there he went over to Europe, but he was shot down over London, I think. After the war, they brought his body back, Edward Freeburger. That was, we knocked around together. He was older than me, but we'd go visit them because they were friends, Dad, his father, and they lived up on Bush River, and we'd go up there and spend the day, canoeing and playing in the water and stuff as kids.
Did you want to join?
I didn't think much about it at that point. But then when I got to be 17 and pushing 18, I was called into the office at Sparrows Point, the shipyard. And anyway, he said, well, as soon as you get your papers, you come see me, we'll get you deferred. I said, I don't have any papers yet. When you get them, you think it. Anyway, I got them, but I didn't go in to see him. And so then I was supposed to report to the draft board when it was the hospital. I had to go get a physical. And that particular evening, I was supposed to be off, and I'd have been there in time. I had to get there before 8 o'clock. I had to work overtime because the lights went out on one of the cranes, and I had to fix the lights up on the boom, and they had to lower it. That took time. So I stayed and got the lights fixed. Well, when I got down to Hopkins, they were all cleaning up. And he says, you're too late. And I said, well, I had to work over. I'm a little late. I still take my physical. Said, it's too late. you report to your draft board in the morning. It was on Gorsuch Avenue, and I reported in there. And wow, I thought he'd take my skin off. It was a pretty serious deal. I didn't think it was. So he made another date, and I went back down the next day and got my physical. Then I wanted to go. So everybody else had gone, because I was the younger of the group, and they had gone in here and there, and so then I went down to the shipyard and told them that I was leaving. And you should have told me. I said, well, I didn't want to tell you. I want to go. Everybody else is going. I want to be there too. So,
you were physically fit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was got me into the service. And three of us went in that day. It was Dick Trossel. He's who's on a B-17. We still knock around together. And Melvin, of course, he passed away. And myself, we got on a streetcar and went to Meade. And we got all our new clothes with the tags on them. None of them would fit, it was all issue until they could go back and get the right stuff.
They didn't give you a choice on where you could be put?
Well, when we first went in, they stripped us down, give us a haircut, and would give us GI clothes before we went any paperwork or anything. That was the first day. So we got clothes on. That was in the morning. So we're walking this way. The drill field's here, and his captain's here. And we're in the middle between the flag, the drill field, and we're walking, three of us. And they start blowing retreat. Well, the captain come to attention and starts saluting the flag. But the flag was up. We don't know anything about a flag or anything else. We thought he was saluting us. We're joking about it, kids. Boy, he says, turn around and salute that flag. Well, we're all crazy looking, so we never been trained or anything. And after that, he got on us. And then he saw we were brand new. So he explained what procedure is. You face the flag, and you salute it. You stand at attention until the bugle quits, and dismiss. But we still talk about that because we didn't know. We didn't know what the heck we did wrong. That was the first day in. Yeah, then they interviewed us where we wanted to go, and Dick went in the Air Force. And I wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic. Melvin, I don't know what he. Anyway.
But that's because you had training in that.
Yeah, I had, because when I dropped out of school, and then I was getting paid doing mechanic work, so I had, and then we took a mechanical aptitude test, and I excelled in that. That was a lot of bombarded questions of just mechanical logic. Nothing's in a book of what would you do if this and that, however they worked that, but I scored pretty high in that.
So where did they send you from Fort Meade?
Well, we got on the train and went around the horseshoe in Pennsylvania. That
Horseshoe Curve?
Yeah, remember going that? It was a steam train, and one of the officers that were with us going was an ex-train engineer, and they let him run that train. Boy, did he ever turn that thing loose when we got on some straight runs. That thing was just literally flying, and the rumors and talk came back through the train that he was driving, and then it went down to normal speed. But I don't know how fast it was running, but the thing was really moving on, and I guess it was a place where you could do it safely, Then we went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, and
McClellan?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do there?
Well, from there, they grouped us all together, and I went to anti-tank company.
Was that for basic training?
Uh-huh. And so I learned all about 37 millimeter anti-tank guns, and then got through, or partly through that. Then they got me in, and I went to school. Truck mechanic school, which I did really good in that. That was fun. I liked that.
Where was that?
That was the same McClellan at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and so I graduated there, and with the basic training through the the marches and stuff we went through, and I wasn't too much fond of that, but it was a lot of physical, endurance. And as a kid, you can adjust to it.
How was the officers in charge of the training? Were they fair?
Yeah, they were pretty rough on us, and but I liked it. I got out there and started doing close order drill. When we leave the lower part down there where we did the calisthenics and coming up the hill into camp, I'd march them up there, and the DIs, all right, get in line and all that loudmouth stuff, and so I just duplicated that, and I'd step out and march them, get them in step, and so the rumor they were going to keep me as cadre, because I don't know, I could take charge of a group if it had to be done, and I just did it for the heck of it, and but I didn't. We went through that, but one time on one of those 15-mile marches, they were rough. We could make them. When it got to 20, I had problems with that. It was a dog. It took you all day to do that 20, 25-mile march. And goofing off, I dropped out, hid in the bushes on break. We got a break every 10 minutes, every hour, 10 minutes every hour. So I hid in the bushes. And me and another guy, I said, I ain't going on that march today. We were in Alabama, it was hot. So they all moved out. I said, now we got to get back to camp. So we start walking back to camp, and about 20 others had the same idea. And we're walking as a group. I said, no, we're not going to get guys in camp like this. I said, they're going to pick us all up. You guys get in the column of 2, I'm marching, we'll go through the gate like a detail. So they got in column 2s and marched, and I'm whoop, whoop, yep. We went through the guard's gate, and detail A, and went on in. If we got in camp, then we dispersed, got in the company buses, and went back to our company. You had to stay hid. So we wrote letters and rested, and it was 2 of us in that one barracks. And so when they started coming back, I slid under one of the guys' beds. They had iron beds, and you could get under there. So I was hiding under there, and they all come in. They want to know where I was. And I grabbed him by the leg and squeezed it, and he went like that, and he was rubbing his legs, and I'm trying to keep from laughing, but just for something to do. And finally, it got into when I came out, he thought something was wrong with his muscles in his legs. I'd grab it and then pull my hand back, and he'd be feeling back there. So finally, he looked, and then it was me. But that was some of the. And
did you get busted?
I never got caught. And not for that. And then in the same camp, we had another guy they come in and rob one another's barracks. And so Dick, he lives out in Pennsylvania. We figured we'd get that guy. We figured who it was, and they had fire extinguishers, with pumps on them. They held about 10 gallons of water in a hose. You'd pump, and the other guy'd squirt. And they come in there and they drown you and run. You knew who it was. So we went, but we got the wrong guy. Afterwards, we found out who had squirted us. It wasn't the guy we got. It was, and that was night activities. So.
Did you find the training to be excessive? Did you learn a lot about weapons, or were you really focusing on trucks and motorcycles?
Weapons, yes. That we trained with it was 1917, the antique rifles for the close order drill, and then we went on a rifle range with the modern M1 to get our target practice in. I enjoyed that, and I did pretty good with that, and I enjoyed that. That was fun. Pistol range, I wasn't much on that, but it was something to do, and taking the gun down, putting it back together, to me was nothing, really, because, it was mechanically stuff anyway. The training, the exercise, I know we benefited by that in the marches we did make. Only one I missed, the one I was told you about. But we first went to McClellan, that training area where we did our calisthenics was down in the hollow. By the time you get up to where we were bivouacked, you were out of breath. By the end of that basic training, you could run up that hill and go to chow, and you could see the difference of being in shape and not being in shape. And I noticed that right off, you know. That's how you can develop yourself.
You mentioned you were on an anti-tank crew for a bit.
I started, but they took me off that.
What did you do on that?
That was training with the anti-tank guns, but I didn't stay there long. It was just getting, just starting the classes and stuff about the weapons, the velocity of the guns, and what it would pierce and stuff. That end of it, which then I was taken out and sent to mechanic school for the trucks. And,
but that was because you wanted to be switched out. Is that right?
Oh, and I didn't apply for it. I when I went in. That with my mechanical background, I guess they needed to fill the class up, and there was one with 015, and I went through school. And
about how many weeks did you stay at McClellan?
let's see, was that 13 weeks? I think it was.
13 weeks of basic training?
Yeah, I think it was.
And then truck school at the same time?
Yeah,
or?
yeah, it was. And then, of course, we had other training, too. At the time, we were going to school where they put the films on about the planes, identifying the planes and the tanks, and their procedure, the Germans, and the different bombing and recognizing aircraft, the whole training program of being a soldier, and what to do and what not to do. Taught you how to dig a foxhole. I thought it was silly when we were doing it. Boy, it sure is automatic when you get into where they're trying to kill you, you know.
How about the food at basic?
I never had a problem with food. I enjoyed it. I was always hungry because I was young and growing and getting plenty of work. I didn't find anything wrong with the food, you know.
Did you see any shows while you were in the military?
Yeah, we had to Bob Hope. And then there's one show the Canadians put on in Mussolini's racetrack. Mussolini had his own racetrack, the seats and everything. And it was a replacement center, and they had on trailers, and they brought an all-girl show in there. Well, they were telling some of the raunchiest jokes and carryings on, and they were dressed like they were setting us on fire. I mean, we were laughing. They were humiliating the officers, and they were getting sometimes a little bit vulgar almost for a USO show. Well, after the US show was over, all the participants, because they were doing jokes and stuff, came out, and they got introduced. And they all took their wigs off, and they're all GIs, women impersonators. Well, no one knew it until after the show, but then you can see after the show they could get by with what they were doing because it wasn't for real, you know. But that was funny. I think everybody enjoyed that, and everybody was fooled, really. And but it was entertaining. And other shows they would have, I would go to. But that one impressed me, really.
From Fort McClellan, where did you go?
Well, we went to Shenango, Pennsylvania, and that was what the heck was the name of it? Shenango, Pennsylvania. It was anyway. We got up there. That's where we got issued our steel helmets. And then we knew we were on the road to go. Shenango, Pennsylvania. I can't think of the name of the anyway, and then we went by from there. We didn't stay there long till we got issued all our overseas gear. Then we went to Patrick Henry. Yeah, Patrick Henry, and the volunteer for Europe, because I want to kill him. And he says, I do. He says, I'll be laying there. I hear him, hey Fritz, I got a bottle over here. And Fritz comes over and I'll blow his head off. He said, and I'll kill everyone I see. And he had the hate in him, something fierce, you know. And he was I never saw him after that.
How did you feel toward the Germans?
The same, from seeing what they were doing and why we were there. what they had done. And
Even by the time Anzio was
Yeah.
happening, you really didn't
Yeah.
like them.
no, it was a thing. We were there, and I watched a B-17 come over, was crippled, dropped out of the formation, and he put it on automatic pilot. He circled, went back over the lines again. They were shooting at that thing, something fierce. He come back over the second time. I was watching it. I saw something come out from that distance. It looked like a speck. It got lower and lower and lower, and I said, what the heck is it? Finally, parachute opened, and he landed. So I got in the Jeep and run over and got him, and we brought him back to the company. I said, tell me something. Why'd you wait so long to pull your chute? I said, I thought you were on the ground by the time that thing opened. From a distance, it's hard to judge. He said, it didn't open. He says, I was clawing that thing out till it caught the air and blossomed. He's a radio man. They all got out, and the other ones were way, because the beachhead was 10 miles long. But we got him back to the company, and then they took him back wherever and shipped him back where he was going. But he was pulling his chute out to get it to open. And it was almost too late, but it opened. Then that thing burned all night. That huge tail was left. It was just all was left of it was the back part. That was. But then we got to Anzio, and
You still dream about Anzio at night?
no. Oh, I think about it.
It's not like nightmares for you?
No, well, it was way back, but adjusted to that, you know.
Where'd you go after Anzio?
Well,
Did you capture Rome?
we broke out there, and when they broke out and went to Rome, I had been sent back to the hospital for something. My hand or something. Anyway, I came back and came into Anzio, and I was at LST, and I was up on a bow, and I saw the guys leaving, walking down here, going up the bank. There was a big staging area up there where the trucks were, and they reissue you everything when you leave the hospital to go back into combat. You're helping the cause by carrying extra stuff back. I had a bag full of stuff I didn't need, and the other stuff was still at the company. I said, I don't need all this crap. I'm going to haul that stuff. Them guys were walking. I know it looks like 3 or 4 miles where they were going. You could see them coming off the other ship. So the Navy was there, and I was getting the stuff to the Navy, you know. Get a ride back to the company. I'll be in good shape. Well, I started my walk. I got up to the stage there when I'm up there with grass, no trucks. Trucks wouldn't come till tomorrow. They'd finished hauling for the day. Well, I swear I dug with my hands to get through the sand and cover up with grass. It was a cold night. I thought all my blankets and stuff I'd given away, you know, but thought I was being smarter than them. Anyway, I didn't have to carry it, and I survived. And then we got back to the company. They didn't take me back to the company. They put me in a replacement company. And that was our company. I said to captain, why can't I go back to my service company? He says, you're in our company now, and they'll draw as they need you. And I said, oh man, this ain't good. So I pitched my tent, and I rested a little bit. And when he wasn't looking, I went through the back field, and I got up on the road, and one of our Jeeps was coming down the road. Kelly, you're back. Not exactly, but I'm going up to the company to see the guys. I'm in our company. How the hell did you get in our company? I don't know. So I went back, and I was talking to Ollie and the rest of the group, and Sergeant Morgan rode by in his Jeep. He stopped. He said, come over here, Kelly. I went over. You're supposed to report into my office, well, it wasn't the office, or tent, when you come back headquarters. I said, well, Morgan, I'm not officially back. I'm in our company. Our company? Get in a Jeep. and he was a rough first sergeant. He drove down to our company, he pulled in there, his captain come out, and he says, tells the captain, take him off your roster, I'm taking this man out of here. You're not taking him anywhere. He's Kelly, and I'm between the captain and the sergeant. Get your stuff together and put it in the Jeep. Okay, I went there, took my tent down. Captain says, you're not leaving there with this man. And after we got stuff in my Jeep, I got in with Morgan. He turned the Jeep around. He says, Captain, you got any problems with this? Just call Major Broken. Let's go. That's all he said. And out we went. And that was the end of that. Went back to the company. Those regular Army guys that were in that National Guard before we were mobilized knew everybody. And they had a lot of power because who they knew, And that captain just stood there and he didn't know what to do. That sergeant defied him right like that, and away we went. And I said to Morgan, is this going to be all right? Don't worry about it. That was the end of that, how they could do that.
Well, did the company go on up into Rome, or did you
go
back to Anzio Beach yet?
No, we went on. Let's see, we went to Rome as a unit, and our trucks were up there. So we were in Rome. It wasn't too long. But Rome was a pretty city, and when we went on tour, it was peaceful then. The crowds they declared it an open city and had left, so there was no hostility there. And the Italians, they welcomed us with no problem. And I enjoyed it. I went saw the Colosseum, went to the Vatican, and then let's see, where was that? It was in Naples one time. I got a pass when I was back there, and it was all civilized and with MPs and stuff. And I went in the restaurant. I had spaghetti and a bottle of wine. I was on pass from the hospital. And while I was eating, this Italian guy, civilian, come up and he says, "What good English? Could I have a word with you?" Or, "Yeah, sit down." And I called the guy, "Get a glass." I couldn't drink all that wine. It was and I said, "Can I help you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I want to be with the Army." He says, "A KP." 'Cause we always kept a KP, a civilian, and they just would do the KP work. They dressed like a GI. Most of them could speak English. They would just be helpers. They didn't get paid or anything, but it was a living for them during the war years. They were displaced, and I told him, I said, "How to join?" I said, "Go up where you're here to ride the guns and the artillery, and it's less GI and less, uniform in that area. There's no military stuff. And tell them that you want to be a KP, and they'll let you stay. They'll give you meals, and you help out in the kitchen, and you can help interpret when needed interpretation or something, And he said, "I really appreciate that." He says, in return, he said, "I'll introduce you to my girlfriend." And he brought his girlfriend, a beautiful Italian girl. And I spent the day with her, But we had another one, Tony. When I first went in, I wanted my combat boots. My shoes were worn out, and we take the top part off and sew them on new shoes. They had the buckles on them. And I asked one of the guys, "Where can I get these sewed on?" He said, "You see Tony?" I said, "I don't know Tony." I didn't know. I had just got into the outfit. I didn't know who Tony was. I thought Tony was a GI. No, he put them all for you. You can give him a buck or so. It was funny. Walk up to a GI, and I didn't know he was a civilian. So I approached him. "Yeah, I'll do it." And it was $1, 50 cents, whatever it was. Well, and then I learned that he was a civilian. And was a heck of a nice guy. He could speak pretty good American. It's broken, but and for an interpreter, he could help out. And so when the war ended, he was displaced, and we were in Munich. And I felt sorry for Tony. I said, "What are you going to do, Tony?" He said, "I'm going to go back," and what town he was from. But he was a shoemaker because he did the sewing on the shoes and stuff. I said, when we got together, I got a Daukau Italian truck, new one, because they had a supply center there at the concentration camp. They had everything in them warehouses, you know. You weren't allowed in there. Well, I was. And so I got this Italian truck and rider, painted it red. There's a picture of it in there. Put 2 Thunderbirds on the front. Put Tony across the front of it because he could letter and stuff. And when we took the truck up to the concentration camp, I went in there. We opened the gates, and they had rolls of leather in there. The Krauts had confiscated through France and stuff that they got. We loaded that truck up with leather. It rolls, and they had everything in them supply houses. It was all military with the swastika stamped on them. Then we got a bunch of jerry cans and loaded it up with diesel. It was a diesel Italian truck, snub nose. And they got a letter from the old man wrote a letter that who he was and so forth, and he took off. Well, about a week later, he come walking back. They got his truck and impounded it, the military did, and then we thought, son of a gun, how are we going to get through this red tape? Well, it was out of my hands. I couldn't do anything with that, but the captain went to Brogan. He was our major, and they knew everybody. The generals knew him. Well, the next letter got written. It got somehow a lot more clout to it, and he got back to his hometown with a new truck, and it was officially his because we had captured it. It was American possession, and so after that, I never heard from him. I don't know how he made out, but he certainly had his own shoe business after that for a while anyway.
You said you participated in 2 invasions.
Yeah, southern France. We went in Marseille and worked up through there till we stopped at Munich.
Again, you went on an LST?
Well, yeah, on that. That was an incident too. When we got to Marseille, they were really giving the coastline a battering with the artillery and the planes, and we were all supposed to stay below. And you could hear them diving and bombing and blowing and stuff, and I said, well, I'm going to see what's going on, you know. And so I went topside, a little house like you come out of, and I was watching them planes and diving and shelling. It was a battleship. I forget the name of it. Was working up and down the coast. Well, it got behind us. I didn't know it was behind us. So we were like hearing about it was here, and Marseille was here. And he let a salvo go. It's a good thing I wasn't directly away from that little where you come up out of the ship. I think it would have blown me overboard. And then like 4 of them go, you know, sideways. Like, man, I'm telling you that I grabbed everything, and boy, did I get below then. Went down where I was supposed to be, and it was. They didn't want you topside because of that. And he was pretty close in the back. I didn't know. I looked around. I saw the battleship, but boy, when he let those, I guess 16 inches go, that was some blast. That was
That was August 1944.
Mm-hmm.
Did you land on a beach there or a dock?
No, now I'm thinking, but I was just thinking about, that was LST we're on. You know, it's vague now. Because one of these, I'm not 100% sure. One of them was a LCI, had the stairs down the side. We had to go through the water to get out off of that ship.
Well, how would Marseille be different from Anzio landing?
Well, as we got into southern France, it was immediate. The artillery started firing, the tanks were firing. There were crats in there, you know. Anzio, we got in there, it was they weren't there. You know, it was unexpected. They didn't think we would hit there, and we had a walk-in deal, but didn't last that long. They sent troops down to stop us, and it's probably good. You heard pro and con on reading the history that they did stop and dig in, because had we been going in too far and strung out, they didn't really have the equipment that was needed, because they were getting ready for D-Day in Normandy, and they couldn't get the amount of vessels that they wanted, and it was kind of a shoestring operation to go in there.
When you went through southern France, was the fighting tough?
Yeah, but then it got rolling. When Patton got to driving them and run them, then it was sporadic. We would sometimes drive all day trying to catch up to them. They were on the run before they'd go in, then they would dig in, and then they'd had a hedgerow operation to deal with, and then they would smoke them out, and we'd go again. Then there was some mop-up operations that we went through that didn't make it and come back, and I captured in that type of operation. They were there, but not in general force, but they were there. And I was riding up, we were, let's see where we, that was in Germany. It's hard to keep track of just where it was. No, that was Germany, we were in Germany by the river, and the word come back to me that there was a warehouse full of booze along the river where we were. And I said, well, we got a truck and a couple of us, and went up where the roadblock was. I knew the sergeant up there would have had the anti-tank gun set up. And he said, Kel, you go down there, he said, they might get shooting at you. They're right across the river. But once you get down to the building, you're below it. It was like low there where that warehouse was. There we go. And we hauled ass down and nobody shot at us. We went around the back of the building, and because the front of it was exposed to them, so we got in the back, and the place was loaded with booze. It was a whole warehouse, confiscated for German military use only. Everything had a swastika on it. It was all French, 4-star cognac and champagne and anything you can mention. I'm not much of a drinker, so it was all, we were loaded up and take it back. So we were loading it up, and so we got it loaded and went back, and so special service officer come the captain, and you stand at attention when you talk to my captain, and you saw him, or you're not going to be able to talk anymore. That shook him. My captain thought I had shot him, but I just shot alongside of him, at the ground. And he came to attention, and that's where he went that truck. No interference from you. So I got in the truck and we drove out. But he come out there and he's captured and disarmed, and he's still arrogant. We were going to rule and all this stuff, And Captain says, "You scared me too." He says, "I didn't know you were going to shoot your pistol." I says, "Well, he didn't give you the proper respect, He said,
You seem to have gotten into some pretty close situations. Was that the closest you went to shooting somebody?
I'm not going to.
All right. Have you attended reunions of any of the men?
45th. I went to several of those. I wasn't going this time, but wife's going to a seminar they have, but she does stitching, and it is at the same date. So, I went back and I met a couple of the guys I'd been in with. Of course, a lot of them have passed away by now,
But actual guys you hung out with?
Yeah, one of them here's a coincidence. So we had the dinner, and a lot of people in there, in the dinner tables, and so I was sitting next to a guy that was in the 120th Engineers. They were attached, or part of the 45th, and I says, "You in the 120th?" He says, "Yeah." He was Indian. He's from Oklahoma, and I asked him. I says, "What company?" He says, "A company." I said, "A company?" I said, "Would you happen to know?" And then that's a shot in a million. Robert A. Dick? "Oh yeah, we're like that." I said, "I'm serious." "No," he says, "I'm serious too." And he was his best buddy, and they were in the engineer group. And he and I went over together, Robert A. Dick. And then I went back up to his room, and we glotched about the war and stuff. And then I wrote Robert A. Dick. He lives in Sagertown, Pennsylvania. And can't think the Indian's name right offhand, but we three-way communicated. And I haven't been back since. Maybe not this fall, but maybe next fall I'll have a chance to go.
Did your service and experiences during the war affect your life?
Well, I would say yeah.
Did it make you grow, or become more of a man quicker, or?
Well, it gave me, I think, a sense of authority in my life. I've always been a foreman or a supervisor, a manager. I like that delegating work and organizing and stuff like that. And then in service, I would have gone further with my rating. I was offered a sergeant, but I had a bad attitude, and that was me. The only thing I wanted was out when it came, and what influenced that was we were in Munich. I was offered sergeant, and I told the captain I don't want it. He said, "You don't want it?" I said, "No, I want things just like they are. I got things made." And I did. I had a girlfriend in Munich. I could go there when I wanted. I could do what I wanted. I knew what to do and what not to do, and I just was organized in the way I was working and everything. I didn't want anything to change, because I would have had to discipline some of the people that needed discipline, and I didn't want to be doing it, after the war had ended. And I told him, no, I'd rather have things like they are. And one I would have had to do, and I didn't want to do it. Sidney Hand, it was a person you couldn't compromise with, so I didn't want that responsibility. So I didn't went any farther with it. I would just want it out, and I got out. So.
If you had to give advice to a young man who wanted to go in the military, what advice from your past would you give him?
Well, there's a lot of opportunity in the service to develop yourself as a person, an individual and a man, and be self-sufficient, where you can function on your own, eat on your own, live on your own, make your decisions, and if you want to take interest in it, advance yourself with education. There's a lot of opportunity there to be had. Now, a war situation is something else, and we all didn't get killed. A lot did, but it makes you an individual, and you face up to a whole lot of stuff that you normally wouldn't have the guts to do. I think that you become proud of what you are as a person, a soldier, really, and.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Is there anything else you'd like to add on our interview today?
Oh, you'd have to unwind me completely, because I could keep on talking, and I don't usually do that. People don't want to hear it, really, but it's some of the things that happened were funny, and stuff that we did this to make things livable, so to speak, and but never hurt anyone. And I had one one. We didn't have a medic in the company at first, and things, and we were in Italy, and they took Mule to the hospital because he was sick. And I went over to see him. I said, Mule, what's the matter? He said, they don't know what's the matter with me. He said, one time he says, I'm burning up, and the time they get in there, I'm cooled off. Well, malaria does that, you know. Of course, I didn't know anything about that. And I said, well, when are you coming back? He says, they don't know what's wrong with me. Well, about that time, he says, holy mackerel, I'm getting hot now. And his temperature spiked up. I went and got the nurse. I said, come on. I said, take his temperature. He's, you know, she took it and it was way up. Then she knew he had malaria and what to treat him with, you know. We were in tents there in the mud flats. And while she wasn't looking, I snitched her thermometer, and she's looking for it. I said, I don't know where it is. And so we got back to the company, and the guys would get feeling bad, and I'd take their temperature. I'm no doctor, and I ain't trained in anything, and they knew it. I was a mechanic, you know. And well, one time we were on a convoy in France, and the rider, the truck ahead of me, he was fooling some girls there and throwing snowballs at him. And then they got moving. He had to drive. He couldn't fight back, and they soaked him with wet snowballs. Fun thing, you know. Well, we had to drive all night. Well, he got a cold, and then he got pneumonia, and they come and got me. He said, Ryder is sick. So I go and see what I can do. I wasn't no medic or anything, but they would just get me because I was always doing something. Anyway, I walk in, Ryder's laying alongside his fireplace shivering. He's covered up, and he said, get out of here, you quack. You're no doctor. And I said, yeah, I had 12 years in this hospital and 12 years in that hospital. I ain't old enough to be 1 year in anything. Just gas with him. So I put the thermometer in his mouth. I looked at it, and it's up there pretty high. So you're going to aid station. I said, you got pneumonia. What do you know about pneumonia? I said, I'm an expert at this. So I got him in the Jeep and took him down to the aid station. And he had pneumonia. And so then the word got out. They started calling me Doc, you know. Have this or that. That thermometer. And we got in a friendly fight. Wasn't friendly. But the guy come running down the road, and they were shooting at him. And the bullet went in this fleshy part of his leg. When he came in where I was, he just collapsed. And I drug him over behind a barrier there where he's protected, and I cut his pants off. And he thought he lost his privates, you know. I said, don't worry, nothing wrong with that. It's just a meat wound. I poured sulfur in it, put a patch on it, and got him calmed down. And so he wasn't as serious as he thought. And then we spread out, and what happened, we come to this town, and part of the company went around it, part of it tried to go through it, and they started firing at one another. It was friendly fire. And, the tanker that we brought up, he cut that turret. He cut a big hole in that guy's turret like that with that 90, and then they were talking after we made contact. Look what you did to my tank. Didn't kill anybody. That whole battle was a lot of rounds fired, and one guy got, you know, the one I patched up, but nobody got killed. Did some damage and cut that Jeep all to hell. And the tank had a big gouge out of his turret. Other than that, then they were all joking about it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. You're at Anzio, and you're about ready to go into the attack.
I'm trying to get my... No, we didn't have a battleship behind us, and that was... let's see. So we got in, and watching them soften up the coast with the airplanes, they did that. They were dive bombing, and so then there wasn't much opposition. hardly anything. And we walked, so we didn't have vehicles, and we were marching in, and we walked all that day, and right before, and we didn't, it wasn't, but occasional, until they get the artillery set up, occasional, it was kind of quiet. It was kind of strange, really. We got in that far. So at the end of the day, we stopped and dug in. We didn't dig in. There was no fire, or we didn't dig in. So we were on top of the ground, and usually it was two GIs together and share a blanket and put one down, cover with one, and shelter half. Then you put a pup tent up. I remember we were exhausted walking all day. And then George says, "Quit fooling around." I said, "I'm not fooling around. Quit bothering me." What we didn't know, when we laid down in that field, there was these chameleons, these little lizards. It was like ants in there. They run all over us. You know, we knew it was at night. It was dark. What the heck is that? And you couldn't hit them. They were fast. Next morning we found out what they were. And we picked up and went in again. And that's kind of vague there where we got. But we finally got caught up to our vehicles. And because the first part of that operation wasn't a whole lot to it. We went in and then stopped, and then they dug in and set the artillery up, and then they sent the Krauts down to greet us, and it was kind of pretty hot spot. I don't see how they survived the artillery barrages that we laid on them. It was unreal, you know, and I never saw how many Krauts they killed, but they bombed them and we shelled them. That place rumbled all the time. And we got dug in that place, and that was nightly. It would be real quiet. You hear pow, pow, pow in the distance, and you hear somebody would copy it, 3 shots. And that was their radar signal that the planes were coming. And you hear Bedjet Charlie come, the bombers, and then they'd unload on us. And you just wait, you know, where he was going to drop it. And they hit us one night, and we were all dug in then. And I thought, oh no, this is unreal. I thought, if they drop paratroopers on us now, we're, you know, and I opened, we had logs and stuff, and I looked out, you know, and it was, ammunition dump was blowing up, the gasoline was burning, stuff flying around there, and so the next morning, we looked at the damage. They wiped our ammunition supply out, and Ryder's truck had a shell. It gone through the side halfway, it was stuck in the middle. This ain't touching that thing. They got it out, and then that was when they hit us pretty hard. And then they had these anti-personnel bombs. There's pictures of them in there. They were about 6 feet high, and were shell. And they would come down and open, and inside there were rings of anti-personnel bombs, like by the size of a hand grenade. And they sound like Chinese firecrackers all over the place. And they dropped one. It was right close to my foxhole, really. It sounded good, all but missed it, really. Well, what happened, I had built a shower. We didn't have a place to clean up, so I took a 55-gallon drum. We got a pipe come out of it, went to the bottom, take an oil can, put full of holes, and had a valve on it. Take a kitchen stove and put under it and heat the water. After it got warm, well, you could turn that valve on, get soaked down, turn it on, and hose off. So they came over, the old man come over. "You made that?" "Yes, sir." "Well," he says, we draw stuff from the supply and put a canvas around it, and it was all mud where it had a stand. There was no drainage or anything. Well, it seemed like that bomb they dropped that night was what I wanted. I couldn't have anything to work with. Those two halves made a half-round place, and I put wood over top of them, and that caught the water. So that was my shower drain, the bomb casings they dropped. And I thought that was pretty nice of them crowds to do that. So that worked out. From that Anzio deal with the showers, then he asked me to build a bigger one. So I scrounged up some pipe and made a larger one where you could get 500 or 600, just an A-frame like a kid would swing on, no big deal. And so that worked out. And from there, they decided to make a regimental thing. That was an issue. They never thought of that stuff, I guess, when they first, formed the Army, a place to clean the guys up. So I thought, I don't want any parts of that thing. So I wanted to stay with what I was at. So they took one of the guys from the tire change, and I helped them with it. And they went back and they got issue shrapnel tents, and they put pipes together and pumps, and they had a regimental shower. And we used it. You go in and throw all your issue away, and you can shower and come out, and they give you all new issue socks and shirts and size, and that's your all brand new and all clean and stuff, and it worked out. But it originated from the first one I made. But then after that, they handled all that bit.
When you worked at the shop where you were fixing a truck, was it out in the open?
Yeah, in the field.
So it wasn't like in a garage?
If we were traveling and we would come into a town that had some facilities in it, we'd clean it out and use it if we, depending, but most times in the field. And we did it right out in the open, really. So
did you work only on trucks?
Anything that needed to be fixed. Yeah.
Tanks too?
No, not tanks. Just we had a fleet of GMCs and Jeeps and some captured stuff we had, motorcycles and stuff. But they hauled the ammunition to the line companies, and the kitchens. They hauled the kitchens up there, and we transported the kitchens from the service company. And it was just a company that supplied the regiment with ammunition, food, and fuel.
Now, did you drive the trucks too?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I always had a captured truck I drove, and when we convoy, they wouldn't let me go with the convoy because it was a captured truck, and it was hairy. You could get straight. One of our planes see it, they'd bust it, but we put big stars on it and hope for the best. I never got strafed, but they keep us kind of out of it.
Did you name your truck that you drove? No. Did you give it a name?
I never had one that long to name it. I was capturing stuff and using that in my truck. And but some of them, in the early part, the 45th, that was before, they had the pumpers painted in white, and they would have Night Raider and the Baron and different names, and they made them take it off. We got in combat for identification. They'd paint them OD and they put the regular outfit number on them.
In the service company, did you have numerous teams that set up garages all over the place, or was it just one?
No, it was just one. It was we were service for the 180th Regiment, and we did all of that, We had a tow truck, recovered the damaged ones that were hit or run over a mine or something. They go, bring them back, and what was left of them, and sometimes we could fix them. It depends on how bad it was, And but it was interesting, and it kept you busy. I mean, a lot of brake work, and it was sometimes you run without brakes. You didn't have them really; they were ground out from it. You run in soot, mud and stuff. It was hard on the vehicles and getting them stuck and towing them out. And I was hauling. They put small arms ammunition on a truck I was driving. It was heavy, and it was hard to load. I mean, they used us to load them too and unload them. The crew. We always had something to do, and I got stuck one time, and I knew what not to do. I'd run my cable out. It was easy. Run out to a tree and just loop it single strand. You break that shear pin, then you had to get yourself in that mud to get that thing out. You had to go in where the truck was stuck, and I had always go and I put a snatch block out there and go out and then come back, give me a 2-to-1 pull, they get those things going, or a tank would give you a pull. But I never sheared a pin. I do the same thing with my boat here, but knowing you can get a lot more pulling power, multiplying it double, you know. And we had the stuff here to do it with. And some of the places we had to go wasn't the greatest, really, you know.
How bad was it at Anzio, and how long did it last?
It lasted pretty long, and it was pretty bad.
A month? 2 months?
No, it lasted all. I guess, all that winter, all that summer, all that winter, and it was the spring of the next year where we broke out. And I got an infected finger up there. I went back to the hospital in Naples and then came back. And we could hear them in Rome. You could lay there and hear that gunfire in Rome, Anzio, and then you'd wait and you'd hear the Shelby going over. And then sometimes it'd be an aerial burst, and it went still further, went to the harbor then. And when it hit, it made one hell of a racket. But they would go over all night long, and before dark, because they couldn't spot them. But you would hear it in Rome. You could lay there. There's 15 miles. You hear that railroad gun go. And Anzio, as a railroad gun, is now in Aberdeen, and I saw it. It's up there on display at the museum. But and then we all lived underground. And one night at Anzio, it was a quiet night. No burp guns, no artillery. Everything, we weren't firing, they weren't firing. I was sitting there on a bale of hay on guard, a rifle across my lap, a helmet on, a collar up around me. It was cold. Something hit me in the side, knocked me over. I landed sprawled, my gun's laying there on the ground, my helmet's off, and there's a dog licking my face, you know. I thought, I thought I was dead, you know. I got myself together, sit back down on the hay, got my rifle back up across my lap, and he's sitting alongside of me shivering. And he wanted to be friends. It's a dog, and there was no civilians on the beach yet. They evacuated them all off, but this dog was there. So I reached in my pocket, and I got some sea ration crackers, 1 or 2 of those left. So I gave him one, and I ate one. And then my relief came. So the dog followed me home. And my bunker, we had dug a hole in an entrance this way. They could go in, and had logs across the top for the aerial first, because stuff was flying all over the place. So it's dog. I crawled in. Dog and I went to sleep. Next morning, I got up. He followed me to chow, and I fed him, and that went on for about a week or so. So one evening, I'm over at my foxhole, and Sergeant Rowe, Kelly says, I got something I want to tell you. I said, what's that? He said, get rid of that dog. I said, oh, Rowe. I said, he said, I'm telling you, that dog comes in my foxhole once more, I'm going to put a bullet through that dog. You get that dog out of here or tie him. I said, boy, you're awful hard on my dog. That's an order, boy. And he walked away. Well, no, he didn't walk away. He started to walk away. Well, they start shelling. And he and I dove into my foxhole. I know where the dog was. And after it was all over, he's leaving. He said, I'm telling you, that dog got to go. He said, I don't want that dog in my foxhole. It's hard enough to keep it clean anyway. So he walked away. So, crap, I'm going to get rid of my dog now. So here he comes back. I thought, well, what now? What do I do now? Come here, I want to show you something. So I went back over to his foxhole. Well, a shell had come down through his bunker between the logs, and where he'd have been laying, it would have gone through his stomach. And we dug it out. It was down in the sand. It was still warm under his bunk. As he hadn't been over there complaining about my dog, he'd have been dead with his guts spread open, you know. And I said to Sergeant Robert Rowe, I says, think maybe I can keep my dog now? I said, he saved your life. Yes, he did that. He said, he did that. He says, yeah, he says, I changed my, he was all shook up. He said, I changed my mind. And I caught him feeding the dog and petting him. And I thought, well, he made a friend. But that dog saved his life, and probably mine too. Well, I got an infected finger and I went back to Naples. When I came back, I said to Ollie, where's my dog? I said, I hate to tell you this, but I took care of him while you were away. And he jumped out of a Jeep and a tank run over him. It's pretty quick then, wasn't it? So that was the end of the dog. But that, I often wondered, I'm sure he remembered that incident. Hadn't he been there to complain about that dog, he'd have been dead for sure.
How did you get an infected finger?
Working on trucks and it cut it or something and it got infected and dirt and stuff in place of the wash up right and stuff, you know.
There at Anzio, did you see a lot of dead GIs?
Well, not really. I saw them when they were hauling them, but they were covered, you know, and you knew what it was, the trucks they used. And
did you see any dead Germans?
Yeah. And yeah, I saw some of them that were left over where he gathered them up. But after that, after we got kind of established, no. And one incident with that we had a attack, and I was in the hospital with, let's see, what was I in there for? A hand or something. Anyway, there was a guy next to me I kept talking to. He had a wound or something, and the Red Cross come through and asked for volunteers to donate blood for these German prisoners who were in another camp, another tent. And he went off. He went berserk, man. I mean, they had to calm him down. So after he calmed down, I kept talking to him. You know, he had one of the rifle companies. I said, now you're a little bit more composed. I said, you got a real hate for them crowds. He said, I'll tell you. He says, my mother and father and my sister, my whole family was taken by the Gestapo, and I got away. And he got to Austria, and somehow through the underground they got him back to the States. He was just a kid. He said, I saw what they did. And I can speak German fluently. And I volunteered as soon as I was 17 to get back in the service and to volunteer for Europe because I want to kill him. And he says, I do. He says, I'll be laying there. And I hear him, hey, Fritz, I got a bottle over here. And Fritz comes over and I'll blow his head off. He said, and I'll kill everyone I see. And he had the hate in him, something fierce, you know. And he was never saw him after that.
How did you feel toward the Germans?
The same, from seeing what they were doing while we were there, and what they had done, and
even by the time Anzio was happening, you really didn't like them.
No, it was a thing we were there, and I watched a B-17 come over, was crippled, dropped out of the formation, and they put it on automatic pilot. He circled, went back over the lines again. They were shooting at that thing, something fierce. He come back over the second time. I was watching it. I saw something come out from that distance, looked like a speck. It got lower and lower and lower, and I said, what the heck is it? Finally, parachute opened, and he landed. So I got in the Jeep, run over and got him, and we brought him back to the company. I said, tell me something. Why'd you wait so long to pull your chute? I said, I thought you were on the ground by the time that thing opened. From that distance, it's hard to judge. He said, it didn't open. He said, I was clawing that thing out until it caught the air and blossomed. He's a radio man. They all got out, and the other ones were away because the beachhead was 10 miles long. But we got him back to the company, and then they took him back wherever and shipped him back where he was going. But he was pulling his chute out to get it to open. And it was almost too late, but it opened. Then that thing burned all night. That huge tail was left. was just what was left of it was the back part. That was, but then we got to Anzio, and
You still dream about Anzio at night?
no. Oh, I think about it, but
It's not like nightmares for you?
no. Well, it was way back, but adjusted to that, you know.
Where'd you go after Anzio?
Well,
Did you capture Rome?
we broke out there, and when they broke out and went to Rome, I had been sent back to the hospital for something. My hand or something. Anyway, I came back and came into Anzio, and I was at LST, and I was up on a bow, and I saw the guys leaving, walking down here, going up the bank. There was a big staging area up there where the trucks were. And they reissue you everything when you leave the hospital to go back into combat. You're helping the cause by carrying extra stuff back. I had a bag full of stuff I didn't need, and the other stuff was still at the company. I said, I don't need all this crap. I'm going to haul that stuff. Them guys were walking. I know it looked like 3 or 4 miles where they were going. You could see them coming off the other ship. So the Navy was there, and I was getting the stuff to the Navy, you know. Get a ride back to the company. I'll be in good shape. Well, I started my walk. I got up to the stage there when I'm up there with grass, no trucks. Trucks wouldn't come till tomorrow. They finished hauling for the day. Well, I swear I dug with my hands to get through the sand and cover up with grass. It was a cold night. I thought my blankets and stuff I'd given away, you know, but thought I was being smarter than them. Anyway, I didn't have to carry it, and I survived. And then we got back to the company. They didn't take me back to the company. They put me in a replacement company. And that was our company. I said to Captain, why can't I go back to my service company? He says, you're in our company now, and they'll draw as they need you. And I said, oh man, this thing's good. So pitched my tent, and I rested a little bit. And when he wasn't looking, I went through the back field, and I got up on the road, and one of our jeeps was coming down the road. Kelly, you're back. Not exactly, but I'm going up to the company to see the guys. I'm in our company. How the hell did you get in our company? I don't know. So I went back, and I was talking to Ollie and the rest of the group, and Sergeant Morgan rode by in his jeep. He stopped. Come on over here, Kelly. I went over here. You're supposed to report into my office or tent when you come back headquarters. I said, well, Morgan, I'm not officially back. I'm in our company. Our company? Get in the jeep. And he was a rough first sergeant. He drove down to our company, pulled in there. His captain come out, and he says, tells the captain, take him off your roster. I'm taking this man out of here. You're not taking him anywhere. He's Kelly, and I'm between the captain and the sergeant. Get your stuff together and put it in the jeep. Okay. I went there, took my tent down. Captain says, you're not leaving there with this man. And after we got stuff in my jeep, I got in with Morgan. He turned the jeep around. He says, Captain, you got any problems with this? Just call Major Broken. Let's go. That's all he said. And out we went. And that was the end of that. You know, we're back to the company. Those regular Army guys that were in that National Guard before we were mobilized knew everybody. And they had a lot of power because who they knew, you know. And that captain just stood there and he didn't know what to do. That sergeant defied him right like that. And away we went. And I said to Morgan, is this going to be like, don't worry about it. That was the end of that. How they could do that.
Well, did the company go on up into Rome, or did you
Well,
go back to Anzio Beach yet?
no, we went on. Let's see, we went to Rome as a unit, and our trucks were up there. So we were in Rome. It wasn't too long. But Rome was a pretty city, and when we went on tour, it was peaceful then. The crowds they declared it an open city and had left, so there was no hostility there. And the Italians, they welcomed us with no problem. And I enjoyed it. I went and saw the Colosseum, went to the Vatican, and then let's see, where was that? No, it was in Naples one time. I got a pass when I was back there, and it was all civilized then with MPs and stuff. And I went to a restaurant, I had spaghetti and a bottle of wine. I was on pass from the hospital. And while I was eating, this Italian guy, civilian, come up, he says, he spoke good English. Could I have a word with you? Or, yeah, sit down. And I called the guy, get a glass. I couldn't drink all that wine. It was, and I said, can I help you? He said, yeah. He said, I want to be with the Army. He says, a KP. Cause we always kept a KP, a civilian. And they just would do the KP work. They dressed like a GI. Most of them could speak English. They would just be helpers. They didn't get paid or anything, but it was a living for them during the war years. They were displaced. And I told him, I said, how to join. I said, go up where you're here to run the guns and the artillery. And it's less GI and less, uniform in that area. There's no military stuff. And tell them that you want to be a KP. And they'll let you stay. They'll give you meals, and you help out in the kitchen, and you can help interpret when needed interpretation or something, And he said, I really appreciate that. He said, in return, he said, I'll introduce you to my girlfriend. And he brought his girlfriend, a beautiful Italian girl. And I spent the day with her, And but we had another one, Tony. When I first went in, I wanted my combat boots. My shoes were worn out, and we take the top part off and sew them on new shoes. They had the buckles on them. And I asked one of the guys, where can I get these sewed on? He said, see Tony. I said, I don't know Tony. I didn't know. I just got into the outfit. I didn't know who Tony was. I thought Tony was a GI. No, he put them on for you. Give him a buck or so. I thought, it was funny. Walk up to a GI, and I didn't know he was a civilian. So I approached him. Yeah, I'll do it. And it was $1, 50 cents, whatever it was. Well, and then I learned that he was a civilian. He was a heck of a nice guy. He could speak pretty good American. It's broken, but and for an interpreter, he could help out. And so when the war ended, he was displaced, and we were in Munich. And I felt sorry for Tony. I said, "What are you going to do, Tony?" He said, "I'm going to go back." And what town he was from, but he was a shoemaker because he did the sewing on the shoes and stuff. I said, when we got together, I got a Daukau, an Italian truck, new one, because they had a supply center there at the concentration camp. They had everything in them warehouses, you weren't allowed in there. I was. And so I got this Italian truck and rider, painted it red. There's a picture of it in there. Put 2 Thunderbirds on the front. Put Tony across the front of it because he could letter and stuff. And whenever we took the truck up to the concentration camp, I went in there. We opened the gates, and they had rolls of leather in there. The crowds had confiscated through France and stuff that they got. We loaded that truck up with leather. It rolls, and they had everything in them supply houses. It was all military with the swastika stamped on them. And we got a bunch of jerry cans and loaded it up with diesel. It was a diesel Italian truck, snub nose. And they got a letter from the old man wrote a letter that who he was and so forth, and he took off. Well, about a week later, he come walking back. They got his truck and impounded it, the military did. And then we thought, son of a gun, how are we going to get through this red tape? well, it was out of my hands. I couldn't do anything with that, but the captain went to Brogan. He was our major, and they knew everybody. The generals knew him. Well, the next letter got written. It got somehow a lot more trout to it, and he got back to his hometown with a new truck, and it was officially his, because we had captured it. It was American possession, and so after that, I never heard from him. I don't know how he made out, but he certainly had his own shoe business after that for a while anyway.
You said you participated in 2 invasions.
Yeah, southern France. We went in Marseille and worked up through there to, we stopped at Munich.
Again, you went on an LST?
Well, yeah, on that was an incident too. When we got to Marseille, they were really giving the coastline a battering with the artillery and the planes, and we were all supposed to stay below. And you could hear them diving and bombing and blowing and stuff, and so I'm going to see what's going on, you know. And so I went topside, a little house like you come out of, and I was watching them planes and diving and showing. It was a battleship. I forget the name of it. Was working up and down the coast. Well, he got behind us. I didn't know it was behind us. So we were like hereabouts was here. Marseille was here. And he let a salvo go. It's a good thing I wasn't directly away from that little where you come up out of the ship. I think it would have blown me overboard. And then like 4 of them go, you know, sideways. Like, man, I'm telling you that. I grabbed everything, and boy, did I get below then. Went down where I was supposed to be, and it was. They didn't want you topside because of that. And he was pretty close in the back. I didn't know. I looked around. I saw the battleship, but boy, when he let those, I guess what 16 inches go, that was some blast. That was in, and that was
August 1944.
Mm-hmm.
Did you land on a beach there or a dock?
Now I'm thinking, I was just thinking about those LST world. You know, it's vague now. Because one of these, I'm not 100% sure. One of them was a LCI, had the stairs down the side. And we had to go through the water to get out off of that ship.
Well, how would Marseille be different from Anzio landing?
Well, as we got into southern France, it was immediate. The artillery started firing, the tanks were firing. There were crafts in there, you know. Anzio, we got in there, they weren't there, you know. It was unexpected. They didn't think we would hit there, and we had a walk-in deal, but it didn't last that long. They sent troops down to stop us, and it's probably good. You heard pro and con on reading the history that they did stop and dig in, because had we been going in too far and strung out, they didn't really have the equipment that was needed, because they were getting ready for D-Day in Normandy, and they couldn't get the amount of vessels that they wanted, and it was kind of a shoestring operation to go in there.
When you went through southern France, was the fighting tough?
Yeah, but then it got rolling. When Patton got to driving them and run them, then it was sporadic. We would sometimes drive all day trying to catch up to them. They were on the run before they'd go in, and they would dig in, and then they'd had a hedgerow operation to deal with, and then they would smoke them out, and we'd go again. Then there was some mop-up operations that we went through that didn't make it and come back, and I captured in that type of operation, they were there, but not in general force, but they were there. And I was riding up, we were, let's see where we got up from here. It's hard to keep track of just where it was. No, that was Germany, we were in Germany by the river, and the word come back to me that there was a warehouse full of booze along the river where we were. And I said, well, we got a truck. And a couple of us, and went up where the roadblock was. I knew the sergeant up there would have had an anti-tank gun set up. And he said, Kel, you go down there. He said, they might get shooting at you. They're right across the river. But once you get down to the building, you're below it. It was like low there where that warehouse was. There we go. And we hauled ass down, and nobody shot at us. We went around the back of the building, and because the front of it was exposed to them, so we got in the back, and the place was loaded with booze. There was a whole warehouse confiscated for German military use only. Everything had a spot stick on it. It was all French, 4-star cognac and champagne and anything you can mention. I'm not much of a drinker, so it was all, we were loaded up and take it back. So we were loading it up, and so we got it loaded and went back, and so special service officer come a captain, and so they got our load. He says, now, he says, I'll tell you, he says, go back up over 2 trucks and get a crew together and get out for daylight and get as much as you can out of there for the, yes sir. So we went back up. Well, while they were loading, I said to Frenchie, I said, let's scout the rest of this building. It's secure, and see what maybe souvenirs or something in the building. Well, they were loading this booze, and it's heavy, it's stuff in there. They shove it out the back window, up and out. And I had a GI flashlight in the L shape. Been a light, you know, you get it shot out. So we went in the building, real quiet, and there was a staircase. And I went up to the staircase a little bit where if I lit the light, it wouldn't be exposed to. And I shined that light up that staircase right in the eyes of SS Sergeant standing there like this. And it blinded him. And he didn't know he couldn't see me because I had a flashlight like that. I'm a kid. I said, Andy Ho. He raised his hands. I said, Frenchie, hold that light in his eye. Now, I'm not armed. My gun's in the truck. Hold that light in his eyes. Frenchie held the light in his eye when I pulled the Luger out of his holster. Took it off safety, stepped back, and I said, boys, to come. Where is your buddy? He said he didn't have one. I said, I'm going to kill you. Call him. He hollered. So Fritz, he come down. He was nervous. He was shaking. So I took his pistol and gave it to Frenchie and took him back. I said, well, where we were loading, went that far. So I put him to work and made him help us load this booze. And then we got back, and the next morning, I had turned him in. The next morning, I owe the interpreter. I was going to chow. He said, Kelly, come here. I went over. He said, you know them 2 cracks you brought in last night? I said, yeah. He said, well, that one SS sergeant said if he'd known you weren't armed, you'd been dead because he'd have shot you. I said, well, he didn't, and I'm alive. So that's all it was to that, you know. But that close. I was unarmed and captured those 2 Krauts with a flashlight, and that's fact, and it's not fiction. And I think about it, how close I was to being dead. Because he even said those SS were they're fanatics. They'd kill you. And he said he'd have killed him, and he told the interpreter that. So it must have been in his mind, but he didn't.
Is that the closest you got to a live killing German?
Well, another time I was going to the woods on a motorcycle, and I had a 45, and as I come down this little trail, we were in Germany then, I saw 3 Krauts sitting by a lumber pile. Turned the key off, and pistol shot at that range. I've been in trouble. And they didn't move. They had their rifles laying across their lap. It was kind of a rainy, drizzly day. So I laid there for a minute after I dropped the bike. I said, "No, I can't go. I can't start this bike. I gotta take them, but if they come up fighting, I'm not going to be able to get them at this distance." So I got my 45, got the safety off, and they kept going slowly. So I got in range where I could get them. Then I hollered at them, "Handy ho," and they were sleeping. And if they come up fighting, I was in a distance, and I could have gotten them. And as they put their hands up, they dropped the rifles. So I made them push the motorcycle back, cross the road and up into the hard road, and turn them in. And but that was a little hairy, because where I was, they would have had to drop on me with rifles and me a pistol, and 3 to 1 in that range. But anyway, I got close enough to them, and they were asleep. So again, and that one, he was a Hitler youth. I don't know how old he was, 12 or 13 or whatever, just a kid. And the other 2 guys were older, and they were like 40s and 50s. So I was looking at him, and I said, "Let me see your watch." He had a nice looking watch, so he took it off and handed it to me. And I looked at it. "What's a nice watch?" So I put it on my wrist. And I happened to look at him, he's crying. He's just a boy, you know. And I said to the old man, I said, "What's the matter with him?" And he says, he told me how old he was, 13. And she says his mother gave that to him on his birthday, and that's when he was drafted into the Army. And I took it off and gave it back to him. I was going to keep it. And they weren't hostile at that point. That war was, they had shaped for them then. I guess they were glad they were captured, really, you know. And but he was one of the young kids that Hitler was putting in there towards the last, you know. Hitler Youth, they call them, I think, or something. But we're almost children. Of course, they could kill you, you know. They had a live gun. But
well, you weren't too much older, 4 or 5 years older.
I know, but still, you know, you
difference at that age, yes. Did you ever catch the name of the kid?
No, I didn't. Then I took 2 more. They had, well, they still do. They have little farm sites, be it maybe a half acre, and a little shack, put your tools in, and they would lock him up. And came up through there, and something didn't look right. That one shack didn't have a lock on it. It doesn't look right. So I got up to it. I jerked the door open, and there was 2 Krauts in there. And so I took them back, but they had their full uniform and their hand grenades and the whole business. But they didn't cause me any problem.
Did you get any souvenirs toward the end of the war?
Well, yeah, I sent home a big Nazi flag. It was as big as it counts, huge. And for the respect of the Nazi flag, I had a convertible Ford. They used it for a seat cover to sit on. And I had it parked down there, and I was in this ice cream place, and the kids hung out, and somebody stole it. Then I had a cap I put in the same package. There was a colonel's cap with all the brave German stuff on it. And I wore that when I was on my boat. We had a boat, and it blew off in the water and sank. I guess somebody got it. Thought it might have been off a submarine or something. But that was and they didn't, and then I had probably about a Luger, and the Luger was a 1937. It was a better one. They made before they cheapened them up. It was better. It was metal instead of the plastic clipping stuff in it. And the first wife sold that. I don't know what she sold it for. And I brought back a 22, a military Mauser. Their training rifle, only it was drilled for 22 instead of let's see. So we were at Anzio one time. that was funny. We're standing around. It was a dog fight up there. We weren't supposed to watch dog fights. You were supposed to take cover, you know. And so this P-51 was diving after this 109. And we were all watching. I saw his guns light up, you know, on his wings, which meant metal to follow. And they hit all around where there was 5 of us standing there, and never hit any of us. It hit Rodder's right ear and tore out all the crap. One went into a tree, and the rest went in the dirt. The one in the tree we dug out, and it was American 50 caliber, and I drilled a hole in it for the transportation sergeant in their pod, and gave that to him for a souvenir. It missed him by that much, but that was pretty close, really. Watching that, you had to watch them when they were fighting in the air like that, you know. But that was pretty close, really.
You went into Germany and went into a concentration camp.
Yeah, in Daukau.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, the 157s took Daukau. We knew we were approaching it, but we didn't know what it was. There was a lot of stench from the death and people rotting. And that was open boxcars with bodies in it. They were sent down from Buchenwald, I guess, to try to destroy the evidence and burn them up there before we captured it. And so we stopped at Daukau. It's right near Munich, where a service company was a place where we could do work. You know, it was a clearing. It had some workplaces, sheds. And Daukau was right up the road, short piece, so we could go up there anytime. And but that was something to see that much, concentrated in one place, that many bodies and things. It was sickening, really. And the stench of what supposed to be human beings could do to people. You know, it was unbelievable. Just bodies every place, and stacked in there like cordwood.
Did you see any German guards?
Saw what was left of them, but there wasn't much but grease and blood and flesh stomped into the ground.
How did they get killed?
They jumped on them until they were nothing but mush. It was just nothing but flies and mashed out. It was. That didn't bother me. They guards, they seeing them laying around until they got them scraped up, and they went in there with the dozers and made giant graves and scraped all that stuff together.
How about the civilians nearby?
Well, they took them and marched them through there to show them what the Krauts had been doing. And
you were there during that time?
I wasn't with them, but they were doing it. Yeah, we were down working, but they showed them that stuff, took them through there.
You recall where you were when the war ended in Europe?
Yeah, we were in Munich, and the guy told me, and I was loading a truck, and the war was ended. I think that was. I can remember the place, but I can't.
How did you feel?
That was great, really. You know, it was like, it's over. And then came, after that, the war in Japan. Well, I had enough points that I wouldn't have to go. So the division then was scraped, we were scraped out of it. The older ones that had enough points to stay for Army occupation. The real high ones were sent back. The mediocre ones were there for Army occupation, so we got reorganized and different people and different levels, and then the lower ones were sent back to the States, and from there they went to Japan, and that was all kind of mishmash there for a while. I figured on staying there that winter, and the truck they gave me to haul gas from Augsburg to Munich was a body recovery truck that we used, and the Krauts would capture it, and they would use it to haul bodies out of no man's land when they would haul a piece to clear the fields. And that was my truck. And it had sideboards built up on it, a chain in the middle so it wouldn't swell out. And I used to haul gas with that. And I came through Augsburg, and because the war was ended then, and they had a sign at there, ice cream. So I stopped. Another Frenchman was Froggy was another one. So we walked back, had some German money and stuff, and got ice cream cone. I said, this is the first ice cream I had since I've been over here. And I asked him, I says, can you make it in large quantities? Yeah, he said, but I don't have the material. I said, what do you need? And he said, one thing I don't have, I need oranges to make the flavoring. And he needed this and needed that. I said, well, if I brought you this stuff, could you make me a trailer load of ice cream, a cheap trailer, like, 50 gallon or whatever them pots held in a big aluminum pot? Yeah. Okay. I'll be back with you. So I hauled my gas in. I went in to see the special service officer, and I told him. So he went up there and made the deal, and I hauled some stuff up what he needed. And then I went up there with a Jeep. And I told everybody after that, I said, we're going to have ice cream this week. Oh, ice cream. He says, you're nuts. Where are you going to get ice cream? And I was always gassing somebody about something for joking. I said, we're going to have ice cream. We're going to have ice cream. Yeah, you're nuts. Well, I rolled in there with that ice cream, and it was enough for the whole company. He had made it. It was good. And I was always had something going like that. One place we went in, it was a brewery in there, and we stopped in that brewery. And there was an old Kraut woman, so half of this house was all bombed out, and part of it. And so we asked if we could sleep in there. She says, yeah. So after we got through work, we went over, and she had it was wintertime, it was cold. She had a fire going in this little stove, where she was. And there's a big bed in there. Ollie and I got in it, and feather mattresses, and it was great. So the next day, we went, he did his work, and I was working on the trucks. And in this brewery, they'd go in there and take a keg and tap it and have beer. Well, it would go to waste. This crowd come over to me. He was complaining about tapping his keg of beer. That's all right. You tack one keg, it's cold, and put some glasses out there, and they can go, and I'll tell the guys, don't bother your stock. If you do that, I'll do that. Oh, that would be great. I said, okay, just put it out there on the dock. So he put a keg in. When it goes empty, tap another one. We couldn't drink too much in the daytime. We had work to do. The guys in the evening got off, they got around there singing and drinking with their glasses and stuff. And he said another thing. He says, between like 5 and 7, or he says, when I shut down, I can put, he wanted to work with us then, save his beer. I can get hot water into the showers up there. That's okay. So I told the crew, I said, we're going to have showers. You have to be there. What are you talking about, showers? Because I was always gasping. I said, just be there. You're going to have hot water. I made arrangements. And they were there like, like, what's going on? We had hot water. So we were there for a while. And then we went, Ollie and I went home at one night, and she didn't have a fire in the little furnace because she built us a fire in that little stove. And so I asked her, I said, you didn't build a fire? No, she said, I don't have any more wood. And they had these square blocks of wood that they used at the brewery. And she used all hers. I said, Ollie, we got to tell what? Come on, get the truck, let's go. So we went over to the brewery, loaded this 3/4 ton up with these blocks of wood, and this crowd come out. And he says, you can't take them. I says, I can't take them? What do you mean I can't take them? I'm taking them. You get in my way and you won't be around here. But I've no buts about it. I said, this wood is going over to where we're bivouacking. And I said, you bother that wood, I said, I'm going to blow your head right off. Oh, no, you don't do that. And so we took the wood over and dumped it in her front yard. And she said, oh, they come from the brewery, and she was scared to death. And I went back and told him, I said, you bother that old woman that we're staying with. I said, I'm going to come back and personally get you. Oh, I won't do anything. I said, so he put the beer out. He got hot showers. He let us have the wood. They cooperated, and after that we moved on. But
when did you head back home?
Well, they sent us to the Bavarian Alps in a rest area. We went to Camp Callis, and from Camp Callis we went up in the Bavarian Alps, and we were there, I know, a couple of weeks. It was a lake up there, and we went swimming. We had kayaks, and we enjoyed ourselves. It was nice, and we lived in a house. We slept on the floor with our blankets and stuff. And an old professor, English guy, come by, or at least he was educated in England, and he was a typical Bavarian and the way they dressed. And he was very interested, because he was a teacher, and in our slang and finding out what the words meant and how we talked, because he spoke proper British and had the accent. We had the American accent. It was new to him. And he was interesting to talk to. And he'd say, I don't understand all this blizzard plots, what you're saying. And I would explain to him what this meant and what that meant. He was real interested, and he'd come by every day. And he would talk. And he was real nice. And I met some friendly German people that I had no malice against, you know. They weren't soldiers, they were civilians, you know. And it was some we made friends with. I made friends. We weren't supposed to fraternize, and we were in Germany, and we were in this area. We were working on the trucks. There was a house right close where we were, and I don't know how I went over there. I went over there, and I went in the house. I looked around in the house, make sure wasn't nothing in there. And I said, you got a radio? Oh, we don't have any electricity. They don't have anything else. They had one girl, an old guy. He was a grandpa and the mother. There was a group of German people. We weren't supposed to fraternize, but we did it anyway. So I said, well, I had a generator then. So I run the generator over, unhooked their line, and hooked up the house to current, you know. And lights lit, the radio come on, and it was printed on it for Bolton. You couldn't listen to American stations. I'd dial an American station and listen to the news, because we didn't have radios either. And they were looking out the window, oh, we'll get in trouble. And they listened to the news. Well, we got friendly with them because we were there for several weeks. And they invited us to dinner. And so I brought over a big loaf of bread, a big can of coffee, some other stuff I got out of the kitchen. And that evening, I told the guys, I said, we're invited out for dinner. Where? I said, that house over there. You're kidding. I said, no, just don't eat chow. Don't go with the chow. I had to go up the road to get it. And we'll eat there. So we all held off. We ate probably 4 o'clock. Everybody's hungry. So we went in the house, and the old guy, he got his schnapps out. He poured us all a water glass of this. I knew what it was, but I found out later, and he gulped it down. Well, in Rome, you do as the Romans do. Everybody else gulped their treat down, and naturally the room started spinning. I wasn't used to that on an empty stomach. And
you seem like a scrounger.
Yeah. And we were just making a life for ourselves, I guess. But when they brought the meal out, that was the funniest thing, and I'm sure if they're still alive, they're laughing about it. I didn't know what it was, and he cut the bread up in little squares like cake, the white bread, and the coffee was in little teacups, about would hold maybe a shot of that was in Virginia. That was port of embarkation.
Do you remember the boat you sailed across on?
It was the USS Louis Pasteur, and it was a French luxury liner converted into a troop carrier manned by the British.
I met a man who was on that boat.
Really?
I interviewed him.
No kidding.
And he went over the first over to Suez on it, around Africa. I guess it was the second time he used it or something. You were second time because he went over the first group. Yeah.
And on that ship, it was funny. Anyway, the British manned it, and their food was yuck. Mutton and stuff they served would make you seasick. And so the one in Pennsylvania, Dick and I, we were knocking around together. So we, buddied. We had us stand the drills, the fire drills, and had to go topside, put your life preservers on, and all that drill. And she was fast; could outrun the sub. So there was no escort. And it was kind of hard to get a place with 5,500 people, wherever's on it, at the rail, so you could sit out there in the sun and stuff, going over. And with that, on the stern, you weren't allowed back there. It was boarded off for a reason that we didn't know. But I picked the lock and cut the lock open, and we go in there. There wasn't nothing in there but just rope coiled up and stuff. But it was open, you could look out over the stern and see that at night you could see the phosphorus from the props and stuff. And we had our own private place we could goof off. And they sound general quarters for all this other stuff. They'd be up there. We were hidden. They would, pull the door shut. Till one day, we didn't know it, but right over top of us, and the reason you weren't allowed under there was a howitzer up there. And they got to firing that thing at something. And good golly, I thought this ship blew up, That's a lot of noise underneath one of those howitzers when it goes. The boards come loose and that whole ship, boy, we got the heck out of there. I thought the ship was hit, We didn't go back in there anymore. Boy, that was loud. But it was reinforced for that cannon up there, and they were firing it. So we didn't go back in that place.
Did you throw up and get sick on the road?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was seasick. Stayed seasick. And then that ship going over wasn't quite as bad as coming home, but going over, they sounded general quarters. Everybody had to shut the lights off and go back in your bunk. And so it had, I guess, sighted a sub or got one on our sonar or something. And it laid there for about an hour. No engines, no lights, nothing. Dead in the water. Everybody we weren't supposed to make any noise or walk around. But when he got his bearings, or wherever that sub was, he turned that thing on and it was running. I mean, that thing was wide open. That thing was vibrating. Them chains on him, stuff on them ships were rattling, and evidently he got to a point where he could outrun that sub and got away, and then he went back to zigzagging. But that was a little hairy, but.
You went to North Africa on the Louis Pasteur?
Yeah,
Casablanca?
Casablanca.
What was your impression when you got off that boat?
It was like, what is this mess, It was terrible. They crap right in the street, and the whores, and it was just of the Arabs and the way they dressed and what they did, the looks of them, like, not impressed really, with that group. And then from there we were trucked into where we were staying, and they told us, well, this is where you're going to be. At night it gets cold. It was like 110 then. Gets cold at night. I thought they were pulling their leg. It gets cold in the desert at night. Whew, I mean, it got cold. We rolled the sides of the tent down and slept with all your clothes on. But the Arabs, it was just, then from there we got on a train and went to Oran through the desert.
How was that train ride?
Well, that was something else. We were in 40 and 8s. The boxcars held 8 horses or 40 people, and we had 40, and it had the doors open, and riding along, there wasn't a place for everybody to sit and look out. And you weren't supposed to get out of the thing, but I climbed out the window when I got up in the brake house. There was a little house up there with a brake wheel on it, and I'd sit in there, and it was pretty nice, except we come to a tunnel, and I didn't see it, and I'm up in that thing, and the windows were knocked out of it, and I took my field jacket and breathed through that, but that cold and soot from that train, I'm glad it wasn't any longer. I don't think I'd have made it, really. I didn't do that anymore, get caught up there on the top, and then, so then we stopped, and there was trains there with salvage, aircraft parts, and junk and stuff, and there's some flexible tubing. So I pulled a piece of that out of one of those cars. What are you going to do with that? I said, we're going to have hot food. So I got some wire and wired that up to the outside, and then took a 5-gallon can, took my bayonet and cut slats in there to make like a grill. Then we had wood from the C ration boxes, and we put all our C rations on there and heat them, and that would take the smoke up the pipe that drafted the train. It burned good. It was really neat. Well, when we got stopped, the officer come back and said, you got to take that out. Why? Well, it's not allowed. Throw it out. I don't know why. That was unreasonable, really, that we couldn't heat our food. But we heated it anyway. We'd have to stack on it because I made another one. And they were up forward in coaches, and we're in these boxcars in the back. And then we run out of water. You're allowed a canteen of water a day, and the can was empty, and there was anti-aircraft crew, British crew, right near the tracks, and had a pipeline, and there was a little stream of water coming out. I took the can. I said, can I have some of that water? So, sure, mate. So I was filling the can up, and then when the train got ready to go, it went boop, and it was gone. There was no preliminary. It was boop and gone. It started. So I started running to meet the train. About the third car from the back, I threw the can into the wrong car to get rid of it, and I jumped on the side and got in my car. We were all. So then when we stopped, the next time I said, if those guys drank my water, I said, we're going to have a fight on our hands, but they hadn't. So then we had water. The captain saw what was going on, and he was going to court-martial me for, I said, well, I wasn't told I couldn't have the water. That water might have been poison. Well, it wasn't. We drank and we're all right, but it wasn't regulation what I did. And so then one of the officers got killed on that trip, got cut in half. He fell between the two cars, and the train ran over him, and they stopped it and buried him there in the desert. Put a marker, I guess, to come back and got him later. And that was kind of, I don't know how he did that. They had a running board like on them, and for you run, you jumped and you grabbed the bar, it went come down this way and hit that running board, and then you could get in. And I don't know, he was off the train and somehow lost his balance or something. And he wasn't, it was a long train, it wasn't a higher officer. But then when we got to the destination, my captain said, I'll drop all that stuff about your stovepipe, and and I got caught with a big bunch of grapes, and he made me throw them away. Great, big blue grapes like that. They were selling them for, I think, whatever it was. And he made me throw them away. He caught me with those. But it wasn't criminal what I did. It was just regulations I wasn't following, and they weren't posted. You're not supposed to buy grapes. If they come out of his head, they might be poison. Maybe they could have been, but I never ate them.
You got to Oran. How long had you been in North Africa? Was it a week or two?
Well,
like,
it took us.
Days?
It took us. We were in Casablanca. It seems like a week or so, and then when we got to Oran, we were probably there about a week, and then we loaded up on the ship from there. And but I saw where they had scuttled the big ships had been scuttled. The French were in there when and that was eerie, seeing all the big ships sunk and turned over. And of course, we had freedom with our ship. That was a LCI, yeah, and that was a stinking diesel. And then we went from there to Naples through the Mediterranean.
When you got to Naples, had the area been secure, or
Yeah,
were you
yeah.
on an invasion?
It was secured then.
Um,
It had just been secured because I went in there and got a shave and a haircut for 5 liras, 5 cents.
At Naples, were you placed with the regiment yet?
No, we were in a replacement area, and then from there is where we were trucked up to Venafro, Italy, where I joined the 45th. They were replacement centers, and things were wide open there. There's just confusion and stuff, and when we came back to Naples to go on to Anzio, it had been organized, and the MPs were in there, and it was more like a run city then, you know. When we first got in, it was all chaos. You get anything for nothing almost, you know. The troops had just left there. The crowds had just retreated, and so it was a run-down place, old. I don't know how they survived. I guess they still do. Them old stone buildings, you know. And we.
When you joined the company, do you remember the day you walked there or were trucked there? What was your first impression?
First impression, I'm a young kid, younger than anybody I saw, and they dropped me off a truckload. Here you are. The sergeant says, you're in this company, and took my name and stuff. And he says, put your things someplace, and we got trucks to work on. Okay, someplace. And there was an old building there. It was on the side of a mountain, but the whole thing was flooded. It was about that much water in the whole place. And that's where the guys are staying. So I go over there, I got a barracks bag and my gear, and everybody's staying in here. There ain't no place for me to stay. They had places on the side of the wall, shelves and stuff, and that's where they had their stuff spread out where they could sleep. It had a roof on it, and no doors or nothing. There was only one thing, was a chest of drawers sitting in the water, and it had drawers in it. So I piled my stuff on the edge of that. I was out of the water. The sergeant said, "You're going to sleep on there?" I said, "Well, it's not in the water." He said, "You were well off in the water." I said, "I don't think so, but I'm going to be under this roof." I could have gone out in the field, but mosquitoes and the bugs and the rain. And I slept on top of the chest of drawers the whole time we were there, and never rolled off. I slept on my back and never rolled off. And they were always kidding me about sleeping on that. It was about that wide, about that long. But then you wade through the water, and then we would work on the vehicles. We had a lot of problem with mud, sand. In Italy, it rained all the time, and with brakes grinding up, keeping them maintained. It was a job, really. And
did you work with one guy all the time?
Yeah, I worked with a couple of the older guys, and some of them I don't think I had much respect for being mechanics. Some of the stuff. I wasn't a mechanic. I was learning, and but then we got along pretty good. Scott Graham, he was older than me, and we worked together, and we got along real well with the rest of them. I don't know. I just fit in, I guess, and they didn't resent my being just a kid type thing. You know, I was accepted, and I stood guard and did everything everybody else did, you know.
You mentioned you got wounded by friendly fire. Was that while you were in Oran?
No, that was in North Africa, and they were practicing howitzers there, and some of those breaches would blow up. I guess it was second grade ammunition or whatever, but a shell hit. We were marching column twos up through the woods, and the shell hit somewhere, and it hit me. Well, I didn't know what happened, except I rolled down the bank, and the lieutenant said, "Get up from there, Kelly." He says, "You're not hurt." And I looked up, I said, "Somebody screwed up." So he come down there after me. He thought I was clowning around. He rolled me over, my left side's all full of blood. So then he got the ambulance and shipped me back. The other guy, he got ripped up in the arm. And I told the ambulance driver, "Don't go too fast. I don't want to be in a second wreck." I said, the way he was driving to get us back to the aid station, you know. So I got in there and they fixed that part up. I limped for a good while, walked on a crutch, but I wanted to get out of there in the worst way.
How long were you in the hospital?
I don't know, probably, I guess maybe 3 weeks or so. And it gave me a partial paralysis of the left, and my leg was numb. I could walk on it, kept my knee straight. I couldn't put any weight on my knee. It was bent. I'd fall down, but I got used to that. And I want to get back to the company and to the group I was with, you know, people you know. You just feel better with, you know, people that you...
But you weren't with the company
the
yet,
ones we would travel with.
You were the rebels, right?
Yeah.
When you finally got to the Italian front where you were working on the trucks, had you seen any or felt any enemy firing at you?
Well, every once in a while, they would lob some mortars over the mountain. We were on this side, and they were on the other side in Italy. And a few mortars would come in, but I didn't, wasn't in the immediate vicinity. And you could hear the burp guns and artillery, you know, constantly firing. And,
but nothing you had to run from?
You take cover, you get down, you know. Once too late then, but the response was automatic, you know. But we got from there, we came back to Naples, and then we got loaded up on ships and went to Anzio, the beachhead.
Now, was this a invasion?
Yeah, that was an amphibious invasion. Well, we come back to Naples before we went. We knew we were going, and we were restricted to quarters. We couldn't go out because the ships were waiting to load. The tanks and everything were lined up for the invasion. And so Doc and George and myself, we went out the back way. We went to Naples. We wanted to see some girls. And I told them, I said, we're AWL, and I don't want to get in trouble. I said, so I'm going to be in charge. And you guys can do the drinking, but I'm going to be sober. And you guys are going, all right, as long as you're in charge. Yeah, okay, we'll go. So we got out, and we went to Naples, and everybody did their thing. Coming back, there was a big circle there, and a bunch of sailors and GIs sitting on the curb. And so I said, we'll wait, get a ride back to Naples. Well, here come a 3/4 ton down the road with a lieutenant, and both MPs. And I saw him coming. I said, just get out of here. So we ran down away from the crowd. He couldn't get right to us because everybody was in the street. There was an alley went up, and they had lifeboats sitting in this alley off of a ship. You couldn't get a vehicle up there. You could run up there. And I hid behind the first one. I told the other two, Doc and George, you get behind them lifeboats. So he came down close to the first lifeboat. He said, I want you guys to come out of there. I got to check your passes. I said, Lieutenant, don't cause a problem. I said, I'm in charge of these men, and it's my responsibility to get them back to camp, and I don't need your help. And don't come in here. He says, I'm armed. I said, so am I. Don't make an issue of this thing. I said, because I'm responsible for these two, and they're going back tonight. We're going to be there in the morning, and not in your jail. He said, well, I'll come back and reinforce them. I said, you're going to need them. I said, because we're not coming out, and I'm taking these back to camp. And he backed off. He left. We were waiting for reinforcements, but...
Were you a corporal at that time?
Yeah.
You were talking to a lieutenant like that.
And I don't know where I got the balls to do this, except that we were in dire straits. We were AWL, And we were subject to the court-martial, and I was responsible for these two. That was our mutual agreement. And my job was to get them back to camp before daylight so we could get on that ship. And I was damn sure going to get them back there. We got delayed in Naples and missed that invasion. Well, it's hard to say what they'd have done to us, you know. But I said, we're going back, and you guys are going to walk and walk whether we get a ride or not. We got back. We got on a ship, and nothing was said. And we did what we had to do, you know.
Tell me about being on that ship for this first invasion you were involved with.
It was a LST, and it was loaded with tanks. When we first got on, I said, we got on there, and they had where they're going to bring the wounded back, racks on the side. It weren't stretchers, they were where you could sleep. Big blower, hot. We get right underneath that blower. So all our group, Doc and George and myself, Belgium, we got in that area, loaded on the ship. And so after we got loaded, we went out in the Mediterranean, anchored, waiting for the next ship to get loaded till we got the convoy together. And they reversed that fan, unbeknownst to us. We might go down and say we're breathing all these fumes up here the rest of the trip. But we were out there, and it was interesting. It was hot. So the captain opened the doors and lowered the ramp down to the water and let us all go skinny dipping there in the Mediterranean, you know. And I thought it was pretty nice to cool off. So that was pleasant. We were probably making up a week, I guess, out there. The other ships got loaded, and then we took off. And going to Anzio, Churchill went by smoking his cigar and had his fingers up. And then we got up to Anzio, and see, they were LSTs. We made 2 amphibious landings. It was for
Let's pause.
in the Bavarian Alps, and we were there, I know a couple of weeks. It was a lake up there, and we went swimming. We had kayaks, and we enjoyed ourselves. It was nice. And we lived in a house. We slept on the floor with our blankets and stuff. And an old professor, English guy, come by, or at least he was educated in England, and he was a typical Bavarian and the way they dressed. And he was very interested, because he was a teacher, and in our slang and finding out what the words meant and how we talked, because he spoke proper British and he had the accent. We had the American accent. It was new to him. And he was interesting to talk to. And he'd say, I don't understand all this. Blitterblots, what you're saying? And I would explain to him what this meant and what that meant. He was real interested, and he'd come by every day. And he would talk, and he was real nice. And I met some friendly German people that I had no malice against, you know. They weren't soldiers, they were civilians, you know. And it was some we made friends with. I made friends. We weren't supposed to fraternize, and we were in Germany, and we were in this area. We were working on the trucks, and there was a house right close to where we were. And I don't know how I went over there. I went over there, and I went in the house. I looked around in the house, make sure wasn't nothing in there. And I said, "You got a radio?" "Oh, we don't have any electricity." We don't have anything else. They had one girl, an old guy. He was a grandpa and the mother. There was a group of German people. We weren't supposed to fraternize, but we did it anyway. So I said, well, I had a generator then. So I run the generator over, unhooked their line, and hooked up the house to current, you know. And lights lit, the radio come on, and it was printed on there, verboten. You couldn't listen to American stations. I'd dial an American station and listen to the news, because we didn't have radios either. And they were looking out the window, oh, we'll get in trouble. And they listened to the news. Well, we got friendly with them because we were there for several weeks. And they invited us to dinner. And so I brought over a big loaf of bread, a big can of coffee, some other stuff I got out of the kitchen. And that evening, I told the guys, I said, we're invited out for dinner. Where? I said, that house over there. You're kidding. I said, no, just don't eat chow. Don't go with the chow. I had to go up the road to get it. And we'll eat there. So we all held off. We ate probably at 4 o'clock. Everybody's hungry. So we went in the house, and the old guy, he got his schnapps out. He poured us all a water glass of this. I knew what it was, but I found out later, and he gulped it down. Well, in Rome, you do as the Romans do. Everybody else gulped their treat down, and naturally the room started spinning. I wasn't used to that on an empty stomach, and
You seem like a scrounger.
yeah, and we were just making a life for ourselves, I guess. But when they brought the meal out, that was the funniest thing, and I'm sure if they're still alive, they're laughing about it. I didn't know what it was, and they cut the bread up in little squares like cake, the white bread, and they had the coffee was in little teacups, about would hold maybe a shot of